try to tell me I can't win, all because of the skin I'm in. But then I look in the mirror again, and then we realize we better than them, we better than them.
They divided and they conquered my kin, but separated by the pigmentation of our skin. It's just that white supremacy agenda again. They want your mind in gold, cutting sugar cane, turning cotton gins. We left the plantation, then they pushed us into tenements. Police patrolling, hunting all my people like we're venison. The government's the criminals, they the real terrorists. Moving more coke than a Cuban watching pelicans. Selling all the dope, trying to kill us with the medicine. You a slave if you think that we're American. America was great before the Pilgrims had a settlement. Trump gets in office, blacks uniting with the Mexicans. Black, Hispanic, Haitians, Jamaicans, we all relatives. Trauma family, yo, we sleeping with the excavates. You niggas ain't pro-black, you just pro-melanin. If you ain't putting work in for our people, you irrelevant. The white man is the devil, our history is evidence. Coons say I'm racist, by definition I'm prejudiced. Got a right to be hesitant, ask the African Methodists. We the endangered species, they rather protect the elephants. We the sons of God like a seraphim. God chosen people from the Old and New Testament. Black power, Kwam Yasha Allah, black excellence. We your new rulers, bow down to your eminence.
They try to tell me I can't win, all because of the skin I'm in. But then I look in the mirror again, and then we realize we better than them, we better than them.
They try to make you think rich. Why? To make your whole life a big risk. So what you do? Commit a crime, get locked up, come home, can't get a job. Man, that shit just make you think bricks. They trapping you. Ain't no way out of this poverty. Fuck being the prodigy, cause the world say you ain't shit. And then they give you religion. As soon as all that fails, they like to make you feel it ain't this, it's you. So what you do, you just can't get it right. Yeah, they like to say the truth hurts, but watch me take a life. And they like to keep you in darkness so you can't get the Christ. Not knowing like Jacob's sons, he is real light. Get it? So it's left to do, you get your mask. Gotta make a way cause your kid's crying, your chick is mad. Every day you working 9 to 5 and still living bad. So you hit your stash, wait to the first and hope that you can make it last. Got me feeling like what I'm working for. All these open cases, cause round here they don't open doors. Bottle with Jack Daniels, how you feeling the earth is yours. So I'm sitting talking to the bottle like we can go for worlds. Even through the tears, sweating when I'm bleeding, I gotta stand up to these heathens. They ask me how I stay so sharp, I tell them, fool, I'm seasoned. And you just food that season, nigga, it's feast time.
They try to tell me I can't win, all because of the skin I'm in. But then I look in the mirror again, and then we realize we better than them, we better than them.
I don't take losing as an option. I just keep pursuing, sticking, moving like I'm boxing. Niggas sell they soul for a chain and a couple watches. Me, I got the key to your freedom, just like a locksmith. All being black in the country that hate your melanin. Never having funding for schools that we be failing in. Rather have a business, but selling crack is more prevalent. But our bloodline on the power that they would never get. But you rather sever it, laying with another race. Say you love your own, but at home it's like another case. Then you try to bleach your skin, we want another face. Like we took 10 steps back and then we're running place. What I'm trying to say is no progress. We've been shedding tears so long and we don't cry less. All they lies so hard to swallow and they don't digest. They're trying to terminate my own people like they on Skynet. Maybe all the answers is something that we ain't tried yet. Knowing that we kings but our palace is in the projects. Wishing for a rollie but on your wrist is a Timex. We started with Ebonics and turned it into a dialect. That's why I use my skin as a badge. I know where I'm at. See me, you know Black Lives Matter. You see bravery. See me overcome over 400 years of slavery. Systematically sabotaged by every agency. Guess it's all because of my skin. That's why they hating me.
I fuck it up, get it together, then I fuck it again. Then get it back, it always seem to be that struggle within. And the story called life got me hugging the pen. As I write, I hate the way my brother's stuck in the pen. And I go hard with the balls, barbarian. Jotting down these balls in the bar, I be killing them, barbarian. Drop it lightweight, make them break cause they all Terrian. You wanna talk shooters, my warriors called carrying paper like librarians. Set with the crew, and everybody in my squad is way better than you. I fuck the game up, I show them how a veteran do. Get it praise cause of my ways and I'm setting them too. Listen.
They try to tell me I can't win, all because of the skin I'm in. But then I look in the mirror again, and then we realize we better than them, we better than them. They try to tell me I can't win, all because of the skin I'm in. But then I look in the mirror again, and then we realize we better than them, we better than them.
How was that one?
too. You crazy for this one.
Who am I to be compared with? I marvel the rap game on some rare shit. And I ain't fucking with these rappers on some real shit. Tryna stack old chips on some stale shit. Uprise against the priest, bet he fell quick. Leave him running in the dark like the Blair Witch. I'm true to this shit and I can't switch. Leave him shaking like he trying to get that paint mix. I'm going hard in the paint, bitch. Say he a god, but he ain't shit. He just impersonating. Full of that dope, you're hurting, ain't ya? Puffing that smoke, he ain't a gangster. Now it's time to expose you. Time to show you how a real soldier roll through. Death coming when it comes, let it hold you. Raised by mighty men, this how they mold you. Heart thumping like Pro Tools. I ain't nothing but the truth, boy, I told you. Style cold, it'll kill you. Cold blue, fresh like Chucky in the truth. Bust the dope moves, nigga. Run against the team, take his leg like the old bitch from Soul Food. I'm just trying to run my pennies up. Don't buck, cause they see me tough. Claim it tough, but that ain't enough. Listen, to be quite clear, bitch, I'm smooth like a light bill. These niggas dead, I breathe life pill. I'm going up like the light bill, cause I'm just trying to get a buzz like my last name Lightyear. Send a message to the masses, I'm fortified. I'm about to trade in my 9 for a 45. I'm killing this shit, gotta mortify. UPK, we up, got the other side demoralized. Them niggas nice, but I'm way more superior. He ain't one wet, he don't fit the criteria. Don't take my kindness for weakness. I'm a beast on the interior. These niggas can't be serious. Brave heart, go against the art. Don't go against the squad, you'll get picked apart. Oh, she say you know God, bitch, don't even start. Play with your Honda, I'm the at the nigga dope like I'm swinging hard. It's wartime, ain't no need to play. This low ass nigga, you was never with us anyway. They say I'm gon' die for the things I say, so I went and got the Glock like you gon' roll with me today. Yeah, it ain't gon' stop, nigga. I'm telling you, boy, it ain't gon' stop. It ain't gon' stop, nigga. Nigga about to fall on this shit. These niggas weak, must be raised from a poor strain. No time for pleasure, bring more pain. Fuck that sound shit, bring more flame. Straight soldier out the gate, I don't move, that's just ordained. And I'm done bullshitting, time to take him down. If he ain't taking ground, then don't come around. Soldiers in the back marching, that's how thunder sound. Tuck me in the booth, I'm just trying to run the underground. And fuck that glass ceiling, they ain't saying nothing. They say 144, how you keep it coming? I told them fear of the Lord, keep my feet from running. I kick shit like FIFA youngin' and aim high like I'm eagle hunting.
144, keep blazing to my nigga. The devil may cry, motherfucker.
This is Cross the Line Radio with Captain Tazariak.
In the New Testament, they call it the Law of Moses.
Well, it is the Law of Moses. Who delivered it? Moses delivered it.
And Captain Katazar.
Brother, I'm going to read a scripture for you just to show you that you don't understand how the Lord works.
Every Thursday night from 10 p.m. to midnight, addressing the issues plaguing the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians. Also, headquarters of The Body Bag.
Trying to put me in a body bag, man.
Yeah, listen. He knew he was in the body bag.
He knew.
Cross the Line Radio. And now,
If you're gonna cross the fucking line. Otherwise, get the fuck out of here.
ISUPK.
I don't hear myself.
One,
I hear
two.
myself?
Hey,
No, the mic. Say it again. Say it
I know.
again.
What?
I don't know if I'm hearing them in my headphones or if I'm hearing them. Say it again one more time. I can't. Can you turn me up over there somewhere where I can hear myself? Okay, if y'all can hear me, give me a 1. I'm not believing Katazai right now. If y'all can hear me, please give me a 1.
I hear you. You in my head right now. Is it you in the left
Slow it
ear?
down. I don't want to be in Katazai's head.
Y'all hear it in the speaker?
Y'all can hear it in the speaker?
Nah.
See, told you.
I know they can hear it.
No, can't hear it. See how they still saying damn right. Make sure the mic levels is all right.
Check, mic check.
I see the mic on there moving.
Yo, let me see yours.
Oh, I got a 1 from Tazara Pa. Tabitha West.
Can y'all hear Captain Tazaria?
Paparazzi. Shut up. Marquis. Okay, we getting 1s. Okay, all right. They hear
I
us.
try
Okay.
to tell you.
Okay, so let's rewind like I never asked that question. Here we are once again. You're joining us live on a Saturday night special. Y'all know when we do Saturday night shows, it's definitely for something important. It's definitely for a good reason. I actually kind of like the Saturday night shows.
I do too. I feel well rested.
Yeah, you know,
Put
I mean,
it
it ain't
back
at
on
10.
your show.
It ain't at 10 o'clock at night. It ain't you know, after a long day of slaving at the job and then got to come out here. So last time we had the Saturday night show, we had that cat Young Farrell where we was talking about that child molester. What's his name? I don't know his name.
I don't remember.
Nature Boy, something like that. And during that show, there was a sister that contacted us that said that she was a former ADA and she would like to come on our show to be able to give us information that a lot of us are going to find that we're lacking or that we don't know, that maybe our rights or rules or laws or regulations that we would need to know if we're ever facing a criminal element or a legal element or whatever like that. So, of course, once she said that, I hopped right on it. So we were supposed to do it, I think, the week before Thanksgiving, but my slavery has been having me all over the place. Like I fly to Florida tomorrow and Houston after that. So I'll be gone this week. So we was able to get it this week here, which is good that we got it this week because y'all know every Thursday we normally do a show that deals with black issues. And so we didn't do it on Thursday because I knew we was going to have this show on Friday. So we have the sister on the chat. Now, before I go, this guy on the camera keeps telling me to talk about ISUBK in the Bronx. So if you're not subscribed to the ISUBK Bronx channel, please go to the ISUBK Bronx channel. I will put it in the chat so you can make sure you click that link and make sure you subscribe to it.
I'll throw you in the description as well. And just so y'all know, I updated the show a little bit. So if you want the music that's on the show, it's in the description box.
Yeah.
Shop Addictive Chaos is in the description box. All the singles, Boston Camp, Harlem Camp, Commander General Johannes the Grill, Let a Hebrew Speak, and soon the Bronx Camp.
Yeah, I found out the beard oil was selling out. Y'all need to listen, man, get that beard oil if you want your beard to
There's
shine.
only 8 more left of mine. I need to catch Captain Azag. Y'all better hurry up and buy.
Yeah, if y'all want your beard to shine. Listen, I did a whole commercial Thursday. I'm going to edit that. I'm going to put it out so y'all can see how to get your beard. You need a blow dryer, beard oil, and water. That's it. Blow dryer costs about $20. You know what I mean? Shalai, you blow your beard out, boom. You be a whole new man. No. Yeah, no, of course, we got T-shirts, we got sweaters, we got cups, we got mugs, we got blankets, we got everything. Anything else I got to promote? Anything else? Anything else got to say? Anything else?
White Man's the Devil.
Yes. Yes.
Passover, April 20th.
Yeah, April 20th.
April 20th is going down.
In New York City.
New
Jersey.
And you know what? I gotta get a photo of that right now. I forgot. And officially, you understand? There are Caesar Borgia doormats. You understand? Make sure y'all shop Cross the Line. You understand? Link is in the description box. I think that's everything.
All right. So without further ado, because we have a lot. I mean, when I say a lot, I asked the sister. I said, send me an email. What you want to go over? She sent me a damn near 3-hour
syllabus.
Yeah. I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. Because what it shows is that the sister had a sincere care to want to really deliver some real good information. And so this show, you're going to hear a lot from her. You're going to hear less from us up here because I want her to be able to give it out unedited, raw, however she sees fit. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the former ADA. So you can give your name if you want to. You don't have to. But you can go ahead and introduce yourself if you want to, sis.
Hello, family. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yeah, they can hear you.
Awesome. My name is Felicia. As introduced, I'm a former assistant district attorney. I no longer practice in criminal law, but I wanted to share with the family some of my legal insight from a lot of things that I saw in my 3 years as an ADA. So if you can only imagine what I've seen in 3 years, then you know exactly where we are within the legal system. So I have an outline, just as Captain Tazarek was saying, and I'm gonna go through the whole outline, and after that we'll take questions, and there may be some questions intermittently as well.
Right. So just to give y'all an outline, also, Captain Zakar wants me to speak about the prison program. For those that don't know, in the Israelite School of UPK, we do have a prison program where we will, we have a van service where we'll actually take you to the prison if you need to visit anyone in jail. We will also go to that prison and actually teach. We have a couple of facilities that we actually have had classes at, and we have brothers in there that we're able to get them to repent, because we can't forget about those brothers in jail, because there is no true rehabilitation. But the ISUPK, we give that rehabilitation. So Captain Zakar, if y'all want to, let me put his email in the chat. It's isupkpd@gmail.com. If you got anyone in the prison system, male or female, and you want to get them some assistance, get them some help, just send an email to Captain Zakar at isupkpd@gmail.com. All right? So now, just to give a quick outline of all the different subjects we're going to touch on today, it'll be family law, the grand jury, family law, grand jury process, district attorney, arrest, arraignment, discovery, plea bargaining, and trial. Now, there's subplots within those. I'm just giving you the 8 subjects that we're going to touch on. So, do you want to give any more about your background, or are you ready to get right into it?
I mean, not much is needed. Like I said, I'm now in civil litigation, but I've been compiling this list since 2015.
Okay.
I also reached out to colleagues in preparation for this show. One of my colleagues is now a special attorney for the Department of Justice in D.C., so she's a federal prosecutor now.
Okay.
So I reached out to her. I reached out to an ADA in Rockland, you know, just to make sure that maybe they had tidbits that I didn't have, things like that. So I've been compiling this for a while and wanting to share it, and also wanting to do it just for the sake of doing it, not to get anything from it, you know.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that you had reached out to a couple of different platforms, and because they couldn't make any profit on it, they didn't want to give this to our people. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I think I mentioned it to you when we spoke. I've been reaching out probably since about 2016 or 2017. After about a year of being an ADA and seeing some things, I said, wow, we should know about this. I reached out to several different types of people, some YouTube personalities, some council people. No one was really interested in doing something. Also some entrepreneurs, you know, just saying, hey, could we use your space? Could I teach for free? And they didn't want to do it because it would be done for free. I didn't want to have any type of money making or charging process attached to it. So,
and that's amazing to me that you would think that, like, I would jump at the opportunity to have someone like yourself, a former DA, criminal attorney, anything like that. You would think that would be great, because that's what we need, because black people be thinking they know the law, but they don't know the law.
Right.
Like, everybody think they're a damn PD at least. They at least think they're a public defender.
Especially the Moors that we're gonna get that's gonna get washed on January 5th.
Everybody think they are. And so when someone comes in with actual genuine information, you should hop on that, especially if she's willing to do it for free. But we love to make a profit. As soon as you call, we hit you right up. Like, as soon as she messaged us and said she wanted to do something, there was no hesitation. So to me, that's the most high, because it probably would have been worthless to be anywhere but here to give that information. So with that being said, I believe the first subject was going to be family law. So I'll let you go ahead, and again, if we have any questions, you know, we'll ask you. So this portion that we're going to touch on is family law. So, sister, you have the floor.
All right, we'll get started. So we're going to talk about family law and how it intersects with criminal law, particularly orders of protection and visitation. So orders of protection. Let's say for some reason a man or a woman is charged with a crime in criminal law that gets an order of protection issued. So for example, husband and wife get into an argument, and now wife is being charged with assaulting husband. Husband has an order of protection. That order of protection will say somewhere in there that it's subject to family court, because you know, the husband and the wife have family issues together. They have children, things like that. So that order of protection isn't set in stone. It can be modified, it can be adjusted by a family court. But the person that order is against, so in this case the wife, she would have to go to family court and say, listen, I'm being charged with assaulting him. We have this order of protection. I need it modified so I can see my children. I need it modified so I can, you know, enter the home, things like that. But modification is possible.
Yeah, because most people believe once you have that order of protection that you just got to leave. You can't go there at all. But what you're saying is that if there was a case where someone gets an order of protection, you can go and get it modified so that you can see the kids. Because I know a lot of times women use that against the man that they want to get out the house. I got this order of protection, you can't see your kids. But in actuality, you're saying that you can go and get that modified to be able to see it.
Absolutely. So whoever the order of protection is against, they can go to family court and get it modified to be able to see their children. Also, they can go through a neutral third party. So again, going back to my example with the wife being the person who has the order against her, she could reach out to grandma or grandpa and say, listen, I want to be able to see my children. Do you agree to be the neutral third party? You know?
And then once they agree, she would be like the go-between.
Right, so there would be no direct communication.
And, I get. And sometimes that's better. You know what I mean? Like I remember I dealt with a situation where I was dealing with a woman that had a baby's father, so to speak, and they couldn't get along, and I was actually the mediator between them two. Sounds strange, but yeah, so like I would actually talk to the son, the father, and say, okay, you're gonna meet him here, we're gonna talk, and I would actually do the dropping off and XYZ just like that. So you're saying that's what the legal right that they would have?
Right. They'll still have a legal right, you know, to have a neutral party unless the order of protection includes the child, right?
Okay. So depending on how volatile the situation could be, it could involve. But if it's just me and you having a dispute, and whether the order of protection is against me or you, the child would still be able to be seen by either one of us.
Exactly, and the order will say that. If for some reason the child is included in the order of protection, which that will happen if whatever occurred was an endangerment to the child. So there will be sometimes, like you were saying, an argument gets so heated that maybe something was thrown and it hit the child fell, something like that. Now you have to go to family court because the child's name is actually on the order of protection. But if the child's name isn't on the order, you can go to family court if you want to, or you can find a neutral party. The next thing about it, though, is the housing with the orders of protection. Because as you brought up, women often, you know, say, well, now you can't live here. Now you have to leave.
Right.
So the housing thing gets a little sticky. You know, a lot of times it's best to go to housing court because what happens is the law has a hierarchy. And a person's protection from bodily harm is pretty much on top of the hierarchy. So what will happen is, you know, the defendant, let's say the man, if he's the owner of the home, he'll say to his attorney, well, I own the house. So how is it that this order of protection is telling me I can't go to the house I own?
Right.
Then they'll come into court, they'll make that argument, and the criminal law judge will very clearly say, I'm not a housing court judge. I'm a criminal law judge. I protect people who are victims of crime. So for now, my order of protection trumps his right to enter the home. So he would have to go to housing court to deal with that.
And then okay, so they go to housing court. What would the housing court be able to do? Because which one would, because you said, like you said, the protection of their bodily supersedes everything. So what would take place in the middle of that? Because of course you got the law where he can't come in there, but then you're going to housing court because he or she owns the house. So what would happen in those cases?
So I've never practiced in housing court, but what I would imagine is the owner of the home would have to do something similar to the eviction process, which that would be messy and long and drawn out. And I can't even imagine, you know, how that would actually work. Now, I have heard of practical ways of getting around the orders of protection as far as housing, but what I heard was defendant owned a multifamily home. And so what he was able to do was, through a neutral party, negotiate for the wife who had the order of protection to live in a certain portion of the home. And for him to live in a certain portion of the home.
And they agreed
upon
it?
They agreed upon it, but they had to come into court.
That's what I was going to say, because like, would they have to go back to the original, where the original law was at? Would they have to go
Exactly. They had to come back to the county criminal court where that order was originally issued, make the argument to the judge, we need a modification. We need the modification to say that he can enter level 2. Level 2 has its own entrance, its own exit. They're separate. And then the judge had to decide, okay, well, he can enter level 2. That's it.
Because, like, okay, so now the tricky part comes, and I don't know, is there like is the order of protection for a certain amount of days normally, or is it the woman or man has to go back to the courts to get it taken off? Like, how does that part work? Only reason I ask that is because, like, say if you get the order of protection and then the next day, usually what happens with couples, they usually make up in some form of way, so then they go back in there, so he or she is in the house, but they ain't supposed to be in the house. So what happens in that case to get it off? Like, so it's on now, so how would you go about taking it off?
So I am glad you brought that up because that is something that gets people into deeper trouble all the time. You cannot consent your way out of an order of protection. It can't be done.
Okay.
So the order of protection is issued and it has a date which it ends. It is active until the end date. He or she cannot say to the person that the order is against, I love you again, come back. No, they cannot consent their way out of the order. And the reason is battered spouse syndrome. It is ratified by the court and believed that someone who is a victim of any type of violence in the home has a syndrome mentally that they can't make rational decisions like that. And
they assume, if I could, they assume that he or she is not stable enough to let this person back in their house, so we're going to restrict them for 90 days or 60 days or 30 days or 2 weeks. And during that time, if he or she goes back in that house, if the police was to come or no, they could arrest that person and bring them back in jail or so forth. That's what you're saying, right?
Exactly. There's no way to consent out of the order. You know, it's believed that you're under some type of mental duress when you're a victim of violence, and from that there's a lot of involuntary things going on. So you can say, oh, I want you to come home, but there's no way that you can consent your way out of that order. And also, a lot of times you'll make up and then you'll break up again. So what will happen is the woman and the man will make up. She'll say, come home. He comes home. They take ussies together. They're putting it on Facebook.
They the happiest couple back alive.
And by the time the new court date rolls around, she's mad at him again. And now out comes the ussies and the snaps and all that stuff. And now he's hit with the felony contempt when he was only facing a misdemeanor.
And that's heavy that you said it, because now he's hit with more charges because he went back there, and then the woman is now re-mad at him and then uses that as further ammunition. I'm glad you said that, and I hope that everybody is paying attention. It says there's no audio. We just wasted all of that.
There's no way.
It says there's no. You can hear?
Yeah,
you hear everything?
They just got to refresh.
Okay, Daryl Gray, you need to refresh. You about to make me mad for no damn reason, because we putting out some real good information here. So Daryl Gray, please refresh your page. But what I want everyone to pay attention, black men and black women, like domestic violence should be taken seriously. If you're being harmed by either male or female, you should do something about it. But at the same time, when that order gets put on, I can't tell you how many times I've counseled a brother who told me his woman got an order of protection, but he gonna go back in the house. I said, brother, like, don't go back in the house. Like, you go in that house, you're under her power now. The reason why you're under her power is because you're gonna have to say yes, yes, yes. The minute you say no and she gets mad, boop, 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 he back in the house, and then now you lock back up again. So y'all gotta make sure, number one, I pray that none of y'all would ever have an order of protection against you, but if you do, look at the fine line and know your rights, because that's not, the order of protection is not a right to keep your kids away, as you brought up, which is most important, because a lot of times spouses, I'll use spouses instead of having to say man or woman, I'll just say spouses. So a lot of times spouses like to use the kids as a method to get vengeance. Now, in that case, it's more women do that than men do that. The vengeance part, sis. I'm pretty sure you agree. But you do have rights. Like the sister said, you can go get rights to make sure that you can see that child. If the house is yours, you can then go to housing to see what other options that you have. So that was actually excellent, that part that you brought. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything more.
No, that's pretty much it. You know, main things to remember about family law intersecting with criminal law. If you're a parent, you have a right to your children unless it is being alleged that you hurt your child. You have a right to your home. You know, you just have to figure out how to do that in a neutral way. And and no one can consent their way out of an order. Those are the main things. So,
and you know, that's one thing black people take in.
No, I was wondering if you had something else before I
go
on.
No, I was just going to add, that's one thing black people think they could do. They think they could talk their way out of anything, talk their way out of a ticket, talk to the police. Hey, hold on, I know I ain't supposed to be able, let me talk to you for a second. The cop don't want to hear none of that. You ain't supposed to be here. You going to jail. It's very rare that you won't get locked up in those scenarios. Especially most of the time the cops are coming back there because you're arguing and fighting again. So I appreciate it. Now, I didn't have any more questions on That part. Now you're gonna jump to the second part, which
yes,
is
the grand jury process.
Okay, so now, I didn't know if you could touch on this too much in the family part. I had mentioned this to you about the child support. You said did you know anything or have any background on that part?
You know, I really don't have that much of a background in child support. The only thing that I know for sure is that there are certain states that are very, very vigilant about, you know, child support, and some states that are a little bit more loose. I know of Florida and Georgia to be states that are a little bit more lax with child support enforcement. I know of New York, Maryland, California to be states where, New Jersey. Oh, you're right, New Jersey as well. And family law in general in New Jersey is a big deal. They do not play. So I know of those to be states where they really, really will go hard and enforce it. The one thing that I am a little bit familiar with is the contempts. I know that they'll put contempts and judgments against credit if you don't pay your child support, which, you know, never really made any practical sense, because if someone is unable to pay their child support, they get a judgment on their credit, they're now hurt from being able to get credit and to get jobs and things like that.
They also, I know in Jersey, they'll take your driver's license away too.
Oh, they'll do that all over the country. All over the country, they will take the driver's license and they will take the passport.
The driver's license, I don't understand. The passport, okay, you don't want them to leave the country. The driver's license, I don't understand, because a lot of jobs, you have to have a valid driver's license in order to get a job. So you want them to pay this money to the government, but they can't get a job. It's almost like defeating the purpose.
I agree.
So I won't stay too much on the child support, only because, like you said, you didn't have a good background. Maybe if there's any attorneys listening to the show, maybe you can come on next, and then we can go into a thorough understanding of the child support system, how it's used to attack, which I believe black men is not made for the purpose of raising a child, because money has never raised a child. Money can take care of a child from a financial perspective, put clothes on them, XYZ, but it cannot raise a child. It takes a man and a woman to raise a child. So no, sis, you can go. The next subject I believe we're going through is the grand jury process.
Precisely. So the grand jury process, of course, differs from state to state. However, in most states, New York included, you don't automatically have the right to testify in a grand jury proceeding. So the only time that the right to testify attaches is when your liberty is actually being taken away. So if you've been arrested, now you have the right to testify.
So in that instance, like, what rights are kind of like being denied you? Because the grand jury, if I'm not mistaken, is where they decide if they're going to try you, right? So if you know that there's a grand jury and you're saying you can't testify, how does that hinder, doesn't that hinder you? That's what I'm asking you.
So the grand jury process is pretty much to decide whether or not this person will be indicted. You know, it's reserved for more serious crimes, usually a felony with a certain amount of jail time attached to it. I have seen numerous times the outcome of an entire grand jury proceeding be altered by whether or not the defendant testified. I can definitely say that it is less likely that the grand jury votes to indict when a defendant testifies. And I'm saying that just from what I've seen. You know, the bottom line is it throws a monkey wrench in the whole process, because the way that the grand jury works, the prosecutor is in control from beginning to end. The prosecutor has put in how many cases into this grand jury for how long, which means there's already a relationship there. You know, we're Smiley, you know me, I know you.
Get this to the indictment stage so that I can go to trial. But like you said, if the defendant testifies, more than likely it won't go. So the benefit helps the prosecutor. Of course, it does not help the defendant.
Right. So it works to a defendant's benefit. Of course, if they have some logical defense to testify. Quite frankly, I've even heard of and seen defenses that weren't even logical that worked because the defendant was sympathetic. But it's putting a face to this name. Again, the prosecutor has a face and has an identity to this grand jury, but the defendant is just a name, you know? And even when a defendant does choose to testify, it's still skewed for the prosecutor, because the way it works in most states is the defense attorney can't actually participate. So the defendant is there and he has a prepared statement.
So his lawyer can't be there. So like if I'm the defendant, my lawyer can't be there with me to advise me, so to speak. Is that what you're saying?
So the lawyer can be there, but he's not there for the purpose of taking any type of role. So the way that it works is defendant has a statement, you know, that he or she is going to read. He's been able to go through this statement with his attorney and talk to his attorney about it. His attorney has explained to him the process, and then they go in together. But the defense attorney cannot speak in the grand jury, cannot say anything.
So that defense
cannot make
attorney
any
might hear
arguments.
some, he might hear some bullshit. He be like, man, I want to say such and such, but he can't. He got to be quiet.
Cannot.
So again, that's against someone that's under the grand jury. It does not help them. It actually hurts them again.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, from what I've seen, defendants testifying, as I said, throws a monkey wrench in the familiarity, the whole process, puts a face to the name, and a lot of times gives the grand jury more to think about. Because if you think about it from a practical perspective, all I'm hearing is what proves that you actually did do what they're saying you did. I'm not hearing anything that gives me any type of doubt. Now, I will say that depending on where you are, some grand juries are more liberal than others. New York is a very liberal place. So you will have a lot of grand juries that are doing their own thinking. But as a defendant, why would you want them to do that? Why would you not be there to give them exactly what your defense is, as opposed to having them, you know, try to think of random things on their own?
Now, is there anything that they can do? Okay, so the odds are kind of like stacked against them there. So is there anything that they can do that may not even the odds, but may turn it a little bit in their favor? Is there anything that they can do from that perspective?
I would say testify. Testify, make a statement, whatever you want to call it, be involved in the grand jury process. As I said, it throws a monkey wrench in everything, and guess what? Especially if the defendant is incarcerated, guess who is in charge of making sure he gets there to testify? The prosecutor. It's now the prosecutor's job to track down the Department of Corrections, find the defendant, make sure he's put on a bus, make sure he's put on a bus to get him there in time, make sure DOC gets him out of all the shackles and the everything, get actual DOC people to bring the defendant to the grand jury, make sure that they are there while the defendant is in the grand jury, make sure that the grand jury is present for the defendant's testimony. All of this becomes the prosecutor's job. So you want to talk about putting somebody under stress?
He ain't doing. Yeah, you know that prosecutor is not doing his job to make sure you get there. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. So like the odds is really stacked up against you. And you haven't even got to the indictment if it's worthy to even go to trial. This is even before you get to the trial aspect of it. It's already being stacked up against you.
Right, but that is really the best way to make sure that, you know, you're getting your voice heard. And also, like you said, it's the best way to kind of shake things up, to be honest, because it's an adversarial process. And I can tell you the most stressful day for an ADA is an incarcerated defendant testifying in the grand jury. You wake up in the morning like, oh my gosh, because now it is your job, as I said, to track this person down. And if he does not make it and he can't testify and that grand jury is ending, or that grand jury is going on a break, you're screwed. And it's your responsibility. Now you have to dump your whole case and start over. So there is no bigger way to boost that adversarial process. Make them work. If they want to incarcerate you, make them work. Testify, have a statement prepared, you know, and so many defendants waive that, and it's so easily suggested, at least from what I know, by defense attorneys, that you should waive it, and I don't see what benefit it could have to a defendant to waive that right, especially if you're saying you're innocent.
Is there like a stat line of defendants who testified in the grand jury where it didn't get indicted, as opposed to those that didn't? Is there a stat line or something that we could look up? Like maybe to look up the numbers to see like how you're saying it's more beneficial to testify. Is there like a statistical stat line to look that up on?
You know, I'm not sure. From what I know, every DA's office keeps their own stats, and they never share those stats.
I bet they don't.
So you may be able to Google and find something.
That's actually what I'm trying to do
But what
now.
I'm telling you is just from what I saw, just from my coming and going from the grand jury proceedings that I ran, and from also shadowing and also assisting a lot of colleagues in grand jury proceedings. I noticed, I mean, as I said, I've seen some ridiculous defenses get someone out of an indictment because that person was believable, they were humble. In particular, the crime that person was being accused of was very violent. So if you see a humble, you know, meek person, it's hard for you to put into your mind this
that
person
he did
was
whatever
doing that.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So
Yeah. So if you brothers is committing them type of crimes, testify. Now that don't happen in Israelite school if you're capable. These brothers out there in them streets.
And of course you shouldn't be. I have to.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be.
Yeah, you shouldn't be. That's what I was gonna get to. You brothers in the streets need to get up out them streets. But if you're gonna get jammed up, testify. It's better to do that. Okay, so now that takes care of the grand jury process. So now we're gonna go into the district attorney process. Okay, so you have it, sis.
So this portion will be very brief.
Okay.
Very simply, a lot of people don't even know who the district attorney is for their county. Not a good idea, because the district attorney is a politician. So as you know, that person was voted in, and what does that mean? They're doing things to keep those votes, and they're running on a platform. For example, there's a certain county, I don't want to pinpoint, but there's a certain county in New York where the DA's platform was domestic violence. She goes hard on DV cases, even cases that shouldn't even be a case, because she needs the stats up, because that's the platform that she ran on.
Right.
So you need to know who your DA is and what platform they ran on, because they will be pushing those types of cases, because they need to be able to say to whoever voted for them, look, I told you that I would eradicate domestic violence.
Right.
Look how many DV prosecutions I have.
Right.
And it's not even only who's voting for them, it's also their bosses. You know, politicians have bosses too. And there are bigger fish that a politician wants to impress. And there's no better way to do that than to say, I ran on this platform, I was able to push those cases, and here is my conviction rate.
So, and like keeping it with the voting, I get like everything I always talk about deals with like blacks and Hispanics and stuff like that. Because I notice a lot, the DAs push real hard. There was a case in particular that always stands out for me with a DA, right? And that was when Akai Gurley got killed in New York. And in that case, they actually found the Chinese officer guilty of the crime, and it was the DA that made sure that they didn't do any time. Would you look at that as political, meaning like the Chinese people were able to come together and not force him, but compel him to do that? Or do you think he just did that on his own? Like just from your experience with DAs, because I've never really heard of a DA getting no time for a murder guilty. Like I believe it was manslaughter that he got found guilty of. And I've never seen someone try to get no time.
Right, the verdict was overturned.
Like the verdict was guilty, and the DA who won the case actually overturned it. So in your experience, what would be your take on a case like that? I don't know if you're familiar with it or not.
I'm not too familiar with the actual verdict. I'm familiar with the case. But what I will say as far as any recommendations or things like that from an ADA, that is approved by a supervisor. Period, point blank.
So he would just be following his superior at that point.
Exactly. And it could be political. A lot of decisions, as I said before, a DA is a politician. So a lot of decisions made by DAs are, for whatever reason, politically motivated.
So who's his super? Who does he report to?
The DA?
Right.
It depends on what their ambitions are. Because realistically, they're only supposed to report to their constituents, right? But if they have ambitions, let's say to be governor or to be mayor or whatever, then that's who they're going to with their decisions and saying, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So that when time comes for them to elevate themselves, they're able to do that.
So, okay.
So they can go to the mayor, ask him, and the mayor say, well, if you do X, Y, Z, this will happen. Because when I looked at that, I said for sure somebody either like he didn't just do that of his own. Like somebody made him do that. I could have sworn. So that's what, as you're telling me about be careful, you know, you should know who your DA is because they work for the people. That was the first case that came to my mind because that was for sure a political move. You can tell by that. So I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Right, and it probably wasn't the DA himself or herself who actually tried the case, which is why I was saying whichever ADA that was taking orders from the DA. And it's very possible that the DA as a politician was taking orders from some large voter group, some large financial group within that district, or taking hints from somebody above them that's in the position they want to move to next.
Right, I got you.
So that was district attorney, elections. Good.
Yes, that's
all
correct.
right. Anything else before we move on to arrest?
No, I don't think I have anything else with the district attorney portion. No, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we'll move on to arrest. We'll start with what happens before an arrest. So as I'm sure most people know, they can't just arrest you for no reason.
Right.
Any law enforcement arresting you has to have probable cause to arrest you or an arrest warrant.
Oh.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna add my own blackness to that question.
I have a few things to insert.
Now, what she's saying is actually right in law.
Right.
Now, what actually happens outside is different. You know what I mean? Like when I think, as you're saying it, I think about the stop and frisk that exists. I mean, you had the black cops in New York City bring up how they were told not to arrest, to target like Times Square area, 34th Street, but to mainly target around here. So I think about that when you say that, because that's true. On paper, you have to have a legal reason to arrest. But we know that cops, you know, falsify information, make accusations, lie, XYZ. Another example I use, not necessarily New York, the officer in Texas, in Dallas, that shot that brother in Dallas, and because she went into the wrong apartment. Now she was able to say, I went into the wrong, say again? She wasn't even on the job. No, she wasn't even on the job. But that don't stop a cop, you know, from lying, which thankfully they did charge her with murder. I believe they upped it to murder. So hopefully she does go to jail for that. So I just wanted to add the blackness to it. That's all.
Because with that probable cause, they will make up something. You know what I'm saying? Or they have loopholes in the system as to what falls in the gray area of a probable cause.
So that's what I was going to get to next.
That's what I need.
Probable cause is not a high standard. Probable cause is not, there's no evidence required. This is probable cause. Hello, 911, a tall black man in a yellow shirt just ran up to me and punched me in my face. Where are you? Oh, I'm at 124th and 3rd Avenue. Now, NYPD comes up and they see some random person wearing a yellow shirt, they have probable cause because they have that 911 call with some type of description.
So you be walking down there,
that
you just
can match
got
any young black
right.
man.
So you just got the 124th with your yellow shirt on.
Just walked out the house.
And the cops is on your ass.
Because it's probable cause. Same thing going back to the assault cases. Someone can call a precinct and make a report saying, yesterday I was exiting my building and I had a dispute with my neighbor. My neighbor punched me in the face. They make the report. You can be arrested based on that report. They don't need to submit a medical report proving that they had an injury. They don't need to prove or substantiate their accusation against you. It is probable cause that they're making the claim that you put them in some type of harm and you committed a crime. That's all that's needed to arrest someone.
And like things like that, when I hear stuff like that, you know, for us here in ISBK, it's all about serving the Most High, like following the law, statute, commandments. And as she's given out the grayest of the gray areas I've ever heard in my life. And what I mean by that is a cop can just make up something. Well, you could be in your car, I thought his tail light was out. He was here, I thought this. This had the yellow shirt like the example she gave. You can see 5 guys with yellow shirts. It's only one person that hit them, but they're gonna take all 5 guys with the yellow shirts on because that's such a great area, which is if you're not under the protection of the Most High, who knows what's going to happen? This is an excellent show, sis. Like that right there. I didn't even know it was that gray. Like I knew that they could make up stuff, but even I didn't know it was that damn gray. You might well just call it clear.
It's gotta be.
I'm gonna call it the clear.
It's gotta be. I mean, like, okay, it hasn't happened because you understand the Lord is with me. But when I was in the world, I got picked up often, and sometimes I get picked up on nights where it seems like they were doing some kind of blitz. And I want to know like what could be the probable cause for, like, for example, there was this bodega in the area. You can get anything you want at the bodega. You understand? At the time, you understand, my disgusting self, I smoked cigarettes. I wanted a Lucy. You know what I'm saying? So I just went to pick up a Lucy, and then, you know what I'm saying, they you know what I'm saying, they whipped around the block, they pulled me over. They didn't find my paraphernalia at the time I was in the world, because my stuff was in a stash box, but they found, like, my partners. And then, so now, they had us in the back of the van, and then they just kept circling the block and picking up everybody that came out of the bodega. So, like, what's their probable cause when it comes down to the police report that they picked 15 people up from the same address, 20 minutes apart from each other?
You know, Unfortunately, they could say a number of things. You know, they could say that they have a directive that that particular bodega has criminal activity. That's also probable
That's
cause,
what I'm
by
wondering.
the way.
Wow,
If there's
okay,
some type
there
of
it is.
directive, or they could say, listen, you know, we got a call that, you know, this bodega has been selling Lucy's, so we were there. That is probable cause. So it could be a number of things. It doesn't even have to be pinpointed to an individual. It could be, I have a directive that criminal activity is stemming from this location, and that means that I'm watching that location.
Okay, because like another location, there was a gas station up the block from my house, and they would sit in the van across the street and wait for somebody to come and buy a Dutch, and then they would search the vehicle from there and use that for probable cause that they were gonna smoke or something like that. So now, like, can they do that? Just bait. Now, nobody should smoke. Nobody should get any cigars or nothing like that. You get what I'm saying? Don't do that. You understand? But can something that's legally that could be used for something that's illegal, could they use that as probable cause?
It depends on what the circumstances are. You know, so again, they're buying something that's legal, but they could be using it for an illegal purpose. That's not enough. There has to be something else that happens.
That they're
something
attaching to.
So let's say he's buying that, and when they approach him, he smells like marijuana.
That's what they say.
That's enough. It's probable cause that he smelled like he was going to go and do something illegal.
I see.
Right. So there has to be something else that happens. But I'm willing to bet that they said this person smelled like marijuana.
Yeah, and all you drug addicts that use marijuana, you always smell like marijuana. Never think you don't.
Right.
I know plenty of cats that are drug addicts that use marijuana. They think they spray some Axe on, and so that get rid of the stench of marijuana. It's just like cigarettes. Like you could think you could put all the breath mints in your mouth, and to a smoker, you don't smell like cigarettes no more. But you go around a non-smoker, they're gonna smell that cigarette on you because it's foreign to them and it's attached to you. So if you don't want probable cause, you drug addicts, put the weed down. Right. Don't let America tell you that it's legal. It's not.
Now, for the record, when you serve the Lord, if I can, you know what I'm saying? Let me just tell you about my recent dealings. You know what I'm saying? Like every time I get pulled over, I get let go. Nobody bothers me anymore.
I got a funny story.
You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, 2 weeks ago when I drove a Shaw home, right? So you know what I'm saying? The lights went on. We got pulled over. So now anybody that's UPK trained, you know what I'm saying? I have my registration, my insurance, and my what they call roll down the window before you even ask. I hand it to them. They're impressed with that. You know what I'm saying? Because they're so used to having a fight. You know what I'm saying? So now they start looking at it. They're like, well, we're gonna run your stuff. They come in the car. So Ashar's like, what'd you do? Did you blow the light? Did you turn too fast? I was like, nah, man. I said they're just it's the end of the month. You know what I'm saying? They just want to, you know what I'm saying, meet their quota. So realistically, they're gonna run my shit. They're gonna find out everything's clean, and they're gonna come back and say they pulled me over for tints. When realistically, they never saw the side of my car. They only saw the back window. So, but they just noticed that I have tints, so that's what they're gonna say. They're gonna give me a warning and let us go. So about 5 minutes passed, and I'm like, nah, they're taking too long to run it. Something's wrong. Then they opened the door. As soon as I said that, I said, nah, we're good. So then they come over to the window. They're like, yeah, we pulled you over for the tints. The warning, you know, you're gonna keep getting pulled over if you don't get them off. You know what I'm saying? But have a good night. You know what I mean? But that's life and the truth. You know what I'm saying? Every time.
I got one. If I could add my little story, I'm driving with my rib on the highway. As we driving on the highway, now I got my seatbelt on. I happen to have a wave cap on. You know, I don't know about, but anyway. So I'm driving. So as we driving, you know, we on the highway. So you know, as you see the cops on the side, right? So we driving. So as we drive, I see the cop. It's nothing to me. I'm just driving. She does this. They go to police. Just like that. Like turn, look at them and everything. Sure enough, police come right behind me because they see her saying that and they know I got keys, guns, something is in the car. So he pulls me over. So he says I was speeding. I don't know if I was speeding or not. So he pulls me over. He says, you got your license, insurance, registration. I'll whip it out. Here's what he says to me. He says, I'm just going to run them. If you're fine, I'm going to let you go. Do you mind getting out the car and standing next to me? I mean, not standing there. I can't remember how exactly I said it, but something like, do you mind getting out the car with me while I check it? So I actually get out the car with him while he checks it. He runs it. I'm fine. And then I walk off, never got a ticket or anything like that. All because she said, there go the police. And they assume, and that goes back to the probable cause. He had no interest in me speeding. Her saying that looked at it as fear of something that I'm probably doing that's illegal.
So there are several legal terms to describe that. Some people like to call it admission of guilt, but you are exactly right.
Right.
If the police are sitting there and you're looking at them and there's the police, that's probable cause. Because it's reason to believe, like you said, that you are doing something you should not be doing. That would be enough for them to, now that you asking you to get out of the car, I'm sure you know he had to ask you, do you mind? Because he had no
that's
real
probably how he
reason
said,
for you to get out of the car. So,
Now,
you know.
But see, I knew that he's expecting me to say, I ain't got to get out the car. I ain't got to do this. I ain't got to do that. But it wasn't no big deal to me because I knew I was fine. So, but somebody else in the world, they probably would have resisted, and then you end up bringing more issue because now the probable cause grows.
The jump out boys, like when the van used to pull up on me when I was younger, they didn't ask. They opened my door. Some of them would just open the handle and be like, step out of the car. And I was like, God, I thought it was normal. I didn't know they couldn't do that then.
Wow.
It got to the point where like I got my car stripped so often, I left it. They used to rip the side panels off and all that. So like when they pulled me over, they were like, I'm like, look, bro, I'm tired of it. Just, you know what I'm saying? Just look, half your job's done. You know what I'm saying? It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
Oh, my rib said he actually wanted me to get in the car with him.
Well,
I didn't get in the car with him.
But you don't have to get out the vehicle, right?
No, you don't. However, I would not advise saying no. And here's the reason. Even though you have a right to say no, I wouldn't advise it because here's the reason. It goes right back to the entire theory that there is something you are doing that you're not supposed to be doing. So I understand that it's a demeaning experience. I've had both positive experiences with police officers as an ADA because they knew I was an ADA. And negative experiences with police officers as a young black woman who did not know who I was or what I do. You know? So I would say comply, because if you don't, it goes right back to that theory that there's something that you're hiding. There's something that you're doing.
And then they dig a little further and it just makes it worse.
I just don't understand. Like nobody breaks the law more than cops. You know, no, for real. Like, let's just keep it real. Nobody breaks the law more than I can't tell you how. Like another thing too. Like, I might have somebody in the car. They're not supposed to be able to ask the person in the passenger seat for their identification, for their license, for their license rather, because they're not driving the vehicle. And yet, I've seen that happen on countless occasions. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody breaks the law more than them.
So, along that trend, since we're on arrest and we're talking about things that are illegal. Let's talk about NYCHA and NYCHA arrests. So for people who aren't in New York,
NYCHA, how do you spell it?
NYCHA. For people who aren't in New York, this might not be as relevant for you, but it's still going to be relevant. There you go. These housing trespassing arrests. So clean halls or whatever is a major initiative in New York City. It pretty much means that the NYPD patrols a lot of public housing. However, they pick up a lot of people and they arrest them and they say, well, it's for trespassing. Clean Halls Initiative, you're not supposed to be in that building, blah, blah, blah. However, if you look at any legal definition of trespassing, and I'm sure if you look at the statute in wherever you're from, it says that you're trespassing if you're not invited to be there by someone who has a right to be there. So in other words, if you're picking someone up for trespassing, you're supposed to check that they're not a guest of someone. But that's not happening. What's happening is I come into the NYCHA building. Do you live here? No, you're arrested. That's not supposed to happen. I could be a guest of someone here. I could be here because my friend or my whosoever lives here. So what's supposed to happen is, why are you here? Are you a guest of someone? Who are you a guest of? And they are supposed to check and verify that you are not that person's guest before they arrest you. Very rare occasions have I actually seen a police officer say, hey, I did check. They said 3C, I went to 3C, and they don't know who he is. But there were so many times
and then because we don't know that ourselves, and we know we trespass and ain't supposed to, we just accept. And that's another thing, too. We accept that the cops know the law. That's what we accept. We accept this officer pulled me over, so he knows the law. So if he's arresting me, he has the right to. So NYCHA, he has the right to arrest me for being in this building, even though I'm visiting like a Yawa Allah or something like that. Instead of me just telling him, hey, Yawa Allah is in room 5, apartment 5C, I'm coming to visit him, can you check? Which is our right, you're saying, right?
Exactly, and so there will be numerous instances, again, first-hand account, where trespassing arrest comes in, and it's viewed as, especially in the state of New York, it's viewed as, well, it's no big deal. It's a violation. You should just write it up. I'm not just writing it up. Did you ask this man if he was there visiting someone? Did you check that he wasn't? And now you're in a conflict with the police officer because you want him to release this person and you're refusing to write it up. And now he wants to go to your boss, and it's a whole conflict because in their eyes, it's just a violation. Absolutely not. Violations come up when you run someone's record. Violations can bar you from getting certain government jobs. Violations can bar you from getting certain government benefits. Violations can bar you from getting into certain educational institutions. Violations can get you deported depending on the violation. Harassment violations can get you deported because it's considered a crime of moral turpitude that you assaulted someone or that you harassed them in a physical way, you threatened them, and that can get you deported. So,
what do they need in order to prove harassment?
It's in New York, at least. Now, harassment is a violation, and all they need is just that you threaten someone. So certain harassment denotations say that you actually kicked or hit that person, but a lot of it just says that you threatened physical violence. So it could be that you came towards them, and maybe it didn't actually happen, but it was reasonable that that person felt they were under the threat of that physical injury.
So all they would need is a report. Like, what evidence do they need? Now, the reason I ask is because I got a brother on the job. He's from Mexico. He was here on a visa, and he got into a domestic dispute with his woman, and she lied. But you know what I'm saying? I don't know for what purpose. You know what I'm saying? And then eventually the charges got dropped, but that was one of the charges.
So you're saying, what would you actually need to prove it, like at a trial?
Like what? Yeah, like as far as, is it just their word? Is it based on the police report? Like what is, you know what I'm saying, that come into?
You're going to need we'll get into this. I just heard a random noise and I got
distracted. That's the predator phone.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm like, what is that?
Like, what the hell was that?
So we'll get into it a little bit more when we get to trials.
Okay.
But it's the basic, beyond a reasonable doubt. For harassment, I have seen an actual harassment trial. It was so ridiculous, but I've seen a harassment trial. I respected the defendant's right because he insisted that he was innocent. So it was an actual violation trial. And it was just the police officer testified to the story that he received from the woman, and the woman testified, and they got a conviction.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So like no witnesses, just your word against theirs?
No, just your word against mine, and it was a bench trial, which that happens very often when it's a lower crime, that it's a bench trial, which means there's no jury, and the judge is the fact finder. The judge is the jury. And as you know, the fact finder can weigh the credibility of witnesses.
Right.
So the judge is now in the position as a fact finder to say, well, which witness do I find more credible, and for what reasons?
Wow.
And from that to decide.
That sounds like a completely flawed justice system.
We have a lot of work to do. I will say that. I mean, yeah. I want you to imagine how bad you think it is and times it by 1,000.
I can imagine. And,
that's where we are.
I can imagine.
I could definitely imagine. I mean, and then this is kind of like I'm going to save it for the end. I don't want to kill your flow.
Alrighty, so NYCHA. Okay, so Rikers arrest. Again, this is something that's going to be a little bit tri-state area specific, but it could apply to going to visit any correctional facility. So particularly with Rikers, you have to take a bus over onto the island. That bus is now an amnesty box, so a lot of people don't know that. If for some reason you have something you should not have, and you're on that bus, I think it's the Q100 or whatever, you're on that bus and you're headed over to Rikers, you can take it off your person, take it out your bag, take it out of wherever, and leave it on the bus. And you will not be in any trouble, you will not be arrested, there will be no issue.
But if you get off the bus?
Now you get off the bus, they have the dogs, they have all of these things going on. They're having a big initiative right now with Rikers arrest, particularly with contraband and visitors. The reason is that they want to try to shut Rikers down, which that's another conversation. So what that means is they need to first clean it up and get it in a place where they have as little, complications as possible so they can start shutting it down. So what that means now is visitors who come with contraband, it's not just they want to arrest the visitor. It's a big push for where did you get this from? who told you to bring this with you, and they're snagging the inmate as well. What used to happen a lot is, okay, the visitor chose to bring this, I'm going to arrest the visitor. What happens now is I'm arresting you, I'm getting you to tell me who you brought this in for, and I am arresting that person as well.
So then this way they add on.
Right, so now you have an inmate who not only has whatever charges he's in there for, he has these conspiracy charges or whatever charges because they're saying, oh, you told this person to bring in whatever. Sometimes they have a phone call confirming that. A lot of times they don't.
So now, I mean, I guess we can get there maybe later, but I did hear that they were looking to shut down Rikers and then open up an individual prison in each borough. Because I know that the one on Staten Island, that's where I'm from, was closed, and now I heard that they're reopening it.
Correct. So the plan is supposedly to shut down Rikers within the next 10 years and to have each district, each borough deal with their own inmates. So they would have their own correctional facility. There are a lot of hurdles to that, though, because first of all, you know, you have to get permission from the constituents of that area to bring a correctional facility to that area if it doesn't already exist.
Right.
And let's say it doesn't exist, which for some places it doesn't. Now, where do you get the money to build this facility? Where do you get the money to run this facility? So a lot of it is a skeleton plan that isn't really very well thought out, in my humble opinion. So we'll have to see what ends up happening, but that is the plan that they have right now.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Okay. Anything about Rikers or correctional facilities in general?
No, I mean, it's, you know, there's not much to them.
So I'll just say one more thing before we close that out.
Okay.
We all know that phone calls to correctional facilities are recorded. Everyone knows that. They tell you. But for some reason, people always think they can outsmart the system. You don't speak another language. They have a translator to translate whatever language you're speaking in. Spanish, French, Yoruba, Arabic, there is an interpreter.
They don't got the Lashwan Kodash, though.
They might. You never know. They bring somebody in there.
And
I think the point,
someone.
they'll
I was
find
just joking,
somebody.
but
Yeah, they'll find somebody to translate that. But it's right, because you think you pig Latin, they be speaking pig Latin like Ate Ire or something like that, and thinking they getting over you. Not.
There's an interpreter for everything. I've been called in to interpret Jamaican patois.
You know what?
There's an interpreter for everything, and there's a decoder for everything. Gang slang, like crew slang.
Really?
There is a confidential informant on the roll that's a part of whatever crew, whatever set, and he will get called in to decode the gang language.
But that a brother just said something in the chat. Are they going to privatize those individual prisons in the boroughs?
That's unknown. They haven't specified that
How
yet.
do you find that information? Is that going to be announced to the public?
Probably not, but I know that if you just Google the plan to shut down Rikers, they have online their little 10-year plan. Like it's available. But whether or not they'll publicize if it's privatized or not, I highly doubt that. I highly doubt they will make that
I have a feeling they
openly
will.
accessible invitation.
I'd say a little higher than that, but
I think pretty much all prisons will be privatized. That's the next big business.
There is actually a big push to deprivatize. A lot of California politicians and a lot of important people out of California are pushing the deprivatization right now.
If they deprivatize prisons, I guarantee you'll see a decrease.
But
prisons.
I mean,
Prisoners, rather.
Cali was the first place that had the 3-strike law. You get what I'm saying? California really did damage.
If I could, it said IUIC interprets all brew talk.
Right. That's crazy.
That is the funniest thing. Okay, sis, you can continue.
So we're gonna go to interrogation. So most people know about your Miranda rights. You know, you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have counsel.
Right.
When you're saying that you want a lawyer, you have to invoke that right to counsel unequivocally. Here's what that means. Maybe I need a lawyer. I might need a lawyer. None of that works. I do not want to be questioned until I get a lawyer.
And then at that moment, they have to stop whatever it is that they're doing. Because I know, like, you see a lot of times, you know, even though you might say the lawyer, like, you say it, like, questionably. Like you're not sure.
Exactly. And so
you got to be solid on it is what you're saying.
Right, because what happens when you say it questionably, here's the reason why it matters. Because a lot of times we talk about these concepts and we don't understand why it matters. The reason that it matters is if you say, I might need a lawyer, you know what happens? They sit the person in the room for another 2 hours because he didn't say it unequivocally. So they sit them there for another 2 hours and they come back and try them again. I don't need to stop because you did not say it unequivocally. So now you're going to be here for the rest of the night with your, maybe I might, I don't know, and they're going to try you all night until they get something. So unequivocally invoke the right to counsel.
Unequivocally.
Yeah. Don't be unsure, be sure.
False promises.
Yeah,
Generally
this is the big one. Yeah,
and
this is
federally, law enforcement can make a promise that they don't plan on keeping to get a confession. It's not considered coercion as long as it's not some type of promise that is hurting you psychologically or that is misrepresenting something as far as your actual safety. So they can't say
everything in writing.
Absolutely. Any type of deal you're making should be in writing.
I watch
Any
Power.
type of deal you're making.
So now, when it comes to a deal, right? When it comes to a deal, can a cop offer a deal that can uphold, like, you know, when the cops say, I can get you this time, you know, that's the cop's biggest thing. You know, I'll help you out.
No.
I'll speak to the DA for you. Like, that's important because criminals, you really believe that the cop can help them and then they confess to the crime and then the cops say, I spoke to him, but, you know, they going a different route. You know what I mean? Like, you're being hustled in the interrogation room.
So that's an example of a false promise. Police officer says to defendant, hey, you know, I can talk to the ADA or whoever, and I can tell them this and I can tell them that. And maybe it does happen. Most of the times it doesn't happen. And even if it does happen, it doesn't matter. Because as we've discussed, everyone has a boss.
Right.
So the ADA is in her office, and now officer blah, blah, blah comes in to what? Talk on your behalf? She doesn't care. She can't do anything that she's not authorized to do by her boss. And it doesn't matter what story the police officer is going to tell her. Very rarely, the word of an officer will make a difference, but it will make a difference when it's something such as an officer saying, listen, I made this arrest because Sergeant said to, but I don't feel this is a legitimate arrest. And a lot of times that'll happen with less serious cases. So if you have a less serious case and you have an officer, which I have seen some stand-up officers say, I don't think this arrest is legitimate. Then you're in a place where possibly the officer's word matters. But if you've gotten to an interrogation room, in most places you're only in an interrogation room because you're being charged with a serious crime. They're not putting you in an interrogation room for buying a Lucy, you know, or for, so if you're in an interrogation room, we're already at a stage where you're being charged with a serious crime. And it's very rare that that police officer is going to be able to say anything that's going to change the situation that you're in. My first day of criminal procedure class in law school, my criminal procedure teacher, professor rather, was a former prosecutor. She had been a prosecutor for 40 plus years. First day of criminal procedure class, professor walked in and she said to all of us, this is the only thing that you need to take away from this class. Nothing good ever comes from talking to the police. Nothing. Nothing good ever comes. Innocent, guilty, you don't speak to them because there's nothing good that could ever come from talking to the police. She told us that on our first day of class.
I shouldn't be telling y'all this, but if no one talks, we all go home. I'm just letting you know. Rule of thumb. Salakia.
No one talks.
Huh?
So anything about false promises?
No, like I think we covered everything.
Okay, so false promises
Don't
and
listen
lies,
to the police.
Same thing.
Don't trust the police. Don't listen to police. What Flavor say? What Flavor say? Yeah, you got to be a little older for that. 911 is a joke. Y'all don't know that song?
We know the song, but it's like Flavor Flav. Like,
he was a man back then. 911 is a joke. No, we're good. You can go to the next.
Okay, so we're going to talk really briefly about choosing a defense attorney. So every state has a bar association.
Wait, before you do
Go
that.
ahead.
Permitting lies. Did we touch on the permitting?
Yeah, so permitting lies and false promises kind of flow
okay.
together.
So like they're allowed to lie,
right,
so to
it's
speak.
just the notion that The police officer, the law enforcement, whomever can lie to you. The only thing they can't do is, as I said, tell you anything that makes you feel that you're in danger physically, that anyone that you love is in danger physically, that they're going to harm you, things like that. But other than that, they can lie to you. So we've already covered that.
They already lying from the gate. Now they, like, you think you gonna trust them? That's what bugged me out the most. You be thinking the cop your buddy now all of a sudden. Man, the cop hustling you. Good. Lil Wayne with Uncle Bob.
Uncle Bob was the cop that saved him when he shot himself in the heart, so he calls him the Uncle Bob.
Lil Wayne shot himself in the heart before?
Yeah.
Well, he was high?
He was trying to commit suicide.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was sad. If you, I'm just gonna chill. We'll talk about that another time.
You was sad for him?
No, I was gonna say he was depressed because baby molested him, but.
Oh. You can continue, sis. You can continue.
So choosing a defense attorney.
Right.
I try not to go dark.
Has a bar association, and you should be able to go onto that bar association's website, look up whoever this attorney is, see that they're an actual licensed attorney.
You get it. Okay.
See that they're an actual licensed attorney and that their license is in good standing. All of this is public information. Actual licensed attorney in good standing. Every state has a bar association website. Every state. Also, depending on the state, you can view if that person has open grievances or open complaints, open malpractice suits. You would not believe how many people hire an attorney and they haven't even Googled the person.
Right, they just pick a name.
Horrible idea, you know, because you never know what this person's reputation is, and their reputation is tantamount. I would say, and this is gonna sound crazy, but I would say it's even more important what their reputation is if you're facing a lesser crime. The reason being, with lesser crimes, the ADA has more autonomy, right? So it's gonna come down to how much do I know this defense attorney? How much do I like this defense attorney? How much do I like the defendant? And how much do I believe whatever the defense attorney is telling me about this person?
Right.
You know, a lot of that, I have seen defense attorneys say, listen, you're charging my client with a misdemeanor, but this is the type of person that he is. I wanna come into your office and I wanna talk to you. And the ADA agrees to that because they know this defense attorney and they trust them. And that leads to, you know, charges being dismissed because it's a lesser case or a plea deal for a much lesser crime. So I would say, especially with misdemeanors, know the reputation of your defense attorney, because when a prosecutor has autonomy, it will matter if they like your attorney or not. It's not fair, it's not right, it's the truth.
Now, this is not a question for me, this is just a general question. When you picking an attorney, right, so like let's say if you call up an attorney, from the moment you're talking to an attorney, is it all confidential? Or
no.
Right, okay. That's,
No, so the actual attorney-client relationship has to be invoked, has to be started in some way before it attaches, and then you have the right to confidentiality.
Right, so if I don't pick that attorney, but I'm feeling him out, asking a question, then I reveal some incriminating evidence, he could actually tell the prosecutor that information because there is no client privilege at that point.
Theoretically, that's true. However, I will say most defense attorneys that I'm aware of, even consultations, they'll start out by saying, listen, you may not have hired me yet, but I am agreeing to, or I am consenting to us having some level of confidentiality.
Yeah, you have
because
to pay
of course
them
they've
for
thought
it.
of that, you know.
If they accept your money, then they have it.
Right, you know, so
put $1 in his pocket.
Most defense attorneys have some type of policy, you know, to protect people during consultations, but it doesn't actually attach like that until there's a relationship. So yes, choosing a defense attorney. Anything about that before we move on to arraignment?
No, that's. I think I'm good, right?
Oh, yeah,
okay, so arraignment, you know, is a process by which you are told what crimes you're being charged with, exactly what statutes they refer to, and then you say guilty or not guilty. You enter your plea at that point. A lot of times, depending on the crime, you'll have bail hearings at that point. So you'll have some type of arguments about bail. The basic things that I made note to mention about bail is you have an 8th Amendment protection against excessive bail. It's very loosey-goosey because there's no exact number for what is considered excessive, but that does help a defendant because it means now I can make it subjective. I can say what's excessive based on what I have accessible to me. The purpose of bail is to make sure that you return to face the charges. That's it. It's not supposed to be based on the nature of the crime, which is something that happens all the time that should not be happening. A lot of ADAs make arguments for bail based on the crime being a heinous crime.
Right.
That's not what bail is for. Bail is not about what I'm being accused of. Bail is to make sure I come back to court. That's it. So the defense attorney should right away be saying, we don't need you going into the details of what he's being accused of, because all you're doing is trying to sway the judge and tug on the heartstrings. We need to talk about how much money is reasonable for my client to actually come back, because that's what bail is for. Not about the nature of the crime that you were accused of.
So what's the major clauses that you could be denied bail for?
So you would be denied bail for not having ties to the community, not having vested interests in the community, not having responsibilities and assets that you cannot walk away from.
I always want to know, when they say ties to the community, they talk about residency, they talk about being in community.
All of that, because remember I said it's very case-by-case basis.
Yeah, they're talking
so
about
they're talking about
family.
all of that. If you own a home, that oftentimes could help. Listen, I'm a homeowner. I'm not just going to pick up and run away from my home. You have children, that helps. I have, this young child. I'm not going to pick up and walk away from my child. I have elderly parents here that I take care of. That's why the family coming to the bail, to the arraignment, that's another thing I want to say. Yes, absolutely get your family and friends to come to your arraignment. Absolutely. Because that's where the ties come in. That's why a lot of times when you see someone getting arraigned, the defense attorney will turn around to the gallery and say, look, his mom, his dad, whosoever is here.
Yeah.
They're showing the physical ties that you have to that community.
You know what? And let me tell y'all this too. You know what I'm saying? There is a like when y'all locked up, right? When y'all in the holding cell, you know what I'm saying? Before y'all go to the courthouse, when you're in the 122 to 120, whatever the case may be, when you wake up early in the morning, there's gonna be somebody who walks by your cell who's gonna have a little pen and pad. He's gonna ask you some questions. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you make it seem like you have those ties in the community with him, because he's going to be the one to relay whether or not they believe that they should hold you, you understand, for the maximum amount of time that they can or not. And they purposely come that early and piss in your Cheerios just so you'll have an attitude with them so they can hold you longer.
You like Cheerios?
I learned that the hard way. I gave him an attitude. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm telling you. I didn't know this.
That's good insight. That's really good insight. To bail. And also, of course, release on your own recognizance means that exactly what it says. You are released to return. That actually happens very often with lesser crimes.
Okay.
So if you are being charged with a misdemeanor or a violation and you don't have a record, you should absolutely be released on your own recognizance. So know that if it happened to you that you had some lesser crime and you have no record and you were held, know that something went wrong. Something went wrong. Because you should absolutely be released on your own recognizance if you're being charged with a lesser crime and you don't have a record. Again, from what I've seen, and this is not fair, but women get ROR'd more often than men.
Of course they do.
Of course, the argument is made, especially a woman with a child, especially. Because the argument is made that she would never do anything to put her child in harm's way or to leave her child, and she has to go and tend to that.
Right.
So that's what I would say. It happens very often with misdemeanors. Felonies, you can pretty much kiss that goodbye. I mean, I've only seen one instance in which
I could
ROR
imagine
happened
felonies would not get that right. You know what I mean?
Probably not.
Right. Which, I mean, regardless of whether they did the crime or not, the crime itself, I don't know if that would warrant recognizance, like getting off on you. But like a small misdemeanor, like you said, would probably get off.
Anything on that before we go to discovery?
No, I'm good to go.
Yeah, I think we're good there.
If I could, the sister's doing a very thorough job. Do we got the bomb drops connected? I want to drop a couple bombs for the sister. I mean, listen, y'all should be paying. You didn't connect them? Good job. Good job. I have a charger here, buddy. We have a charger.
That's what I need.
Yeah, MVP. But if y'all listen, if y'all just tuning into the show, we have a former ADA assistant district attorney, for those that don't know what ADA means, who had listened to our show and wanted to come on the show and bring some, they always use that term powerful, especially in the black world. It'd be powerful for Egypt or some shit like that. But the sister wanted to bring some powerful information, and if y'all listen to this show, What the sister has been bringing forth is information that I know I didn't know, and I know the listeners that we have, some of this information you have didn't know. And it's important for us to share this information. So when it comes to your legal rights, your legal standings, what you can be made aware of, what you can protect and defend yourself from, this is a hell of a show. So again, I applaud the sister for coming to the show.
It's been most informative.
Yeah, this is probably one of my best shows.
Especially with the having family, friends, somebody in there who cares about you. Because without that, they just feel like no one is there for you. We can just take your life and throw it away. You know what I'm saying? And here's another thing too. You understand? For brothers and sisters out there not in the truth, stop committing crime. Because every time you commit crime and you get locked up, you help build this white man's empire. You get what I'm saying? For real.
Right.
For real. Just throwing it out there. But back to sister, because
that was almost like a commercial break.
Right.
I didn't know if you needed some time.
She
got the Essentia water.
And I, of course, agree.
Mm-hmm.
Don't commit crimes. Terrible idea. Yeah. Don't hang out with people who commit crimes because you don't know how many innocent people are in jail because they got into someone's car
hang with their homies
or they hung out with such and such. And I also wanted to say to ISUPK and to the host of Cross the Line Radio, thank you.
Oh, thank you,
you do not understand how rewarding it is to finally be able to share this information. I have wanted to share this.
Yeah, and let me tell y'all why she's saying that. Let me just add this tidbit. She tried to do this for almost 2 years. She wanted to give this information out for free to the public, which is rare for an attorney. You know what I mean? The one, especially in New York City. New York, they want to get all the money. I'm sorry.
Wait, hold on.
We got the bonds back. So for 2 years, this sister been trying to do it, and every platform and media outlet that she went to wanted to make money off of her. So because they couldn't make money off of her, they would not let her be the voice to y'all that y'all hear today. So she contacted us, and of course we jump on everything that will uplift black people as a whole. So you said thank you, but I can't thank you enough for even coming on the show, contacting us. So hell of a job so far, sis. You may continue whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
And then once again, if you don't mind, once we wrap this up, I do want to take a quick break and then open the phone lines to anyone at home that might have any questions.
Yeah, definitely. The phone lines will be open. Once she finishes, we only have, I think, 3 more topics with subtopics in them.
Yes, we're doing very well on time.
Yeah.
Very well on time.
You came prepared. I got to give it to you. She got a little notebook. I don't know if y'all can see. She got a little notes. Got her smartphone out. Is not that an iPhone?
It is.
And she's working with an iPhone on my show. I can't believe it.
That's because Apple is the way.
But we're working good on the time. So yes, after we do this, the phone lines will be opened up. We'll be taking calls, so get your questions ready. The phone number to call is 646-902-6868. That's the number. So, sis, you may continue whenever you're ready.
All right. So, discovery. For those of you who may not know, discovery is the process by which the two parties share information, and it's supposed to happen in its entirety before a trial begins. So what that means is the prosecution is supposed to hand over to defense all the evidence they have, a witness list, all of these things before the trial actually begins. So as far as we're practically with discovery, there are a couple of different things that the defendant should be paying attention to. So 61s, which are also known as complaint reports, it's paperwork generated by the arresting officer, and it is very important. Again, the name could change based on your state, based on whatever agency is arresting you, but somewhere there is a report that should be in discovery that should have been drafted by the person that arrested you that states when they arrested you, where they arrested you, what information they arrested you based on. It should also state if there are any witnesses to whatever you're being accused of. It should state if there was anyone that was on the scene that was injured by whatever you're being accused of.
Right.
The reason why all of this matters is this. Hypothetical story, of course. Young man is arrested for assaulting someone. For some reason, a lot of assaults happen in New York. That's a different topic.
Right.
So young man is arrested for assaulting someone, and we open the 61 report, and the 61 report says that the victim said she was attacked by a Hispanic man in blue, and it is a black man that was wearing some other color, definitely not blue, that was arrested. And this person is already sitting in a holding cell. So that is why your 61 is very important, because it's not always that the police officer is going to review it properly. It's not always that the ADA is going to review it properly. So as the defendant, you need to make sure you look at that, because it could have some exculpatory evidence in there. Surveillance, another hypothetical story. A young man was arrested for robbing someone outside of a bodega. As you know, there's cameras everywhere nowadays, right? So the police go to the bodega owner and they say to the owner, do you have surveillance? Do you have a camera? Bodega owner says yes and hands over that surveillance.
Right.
Police officers take the surveillance, they then give it to the ADA. The ADA has 50 million cases, so she's not watching that surveillance right now. So it gets put in the file and the file gets filed away. This entire time, this person is on Rikers this entire time. Now, defense attorney calls ADA, and ADA says, hey, listen, they dropped off some surveillance. I haven't really gotten around to it yet, but, you know, it's there. I'll hand it over. We'll get to it, blah, blah, blah. 2-3 weeks later, the next court date is coming up. Now it's tantamount. Now it's, oh, I need to watch this because there's a court date coming up.
Right.
By this point, the defendant has already been at Rikers for going on almost 2 months at this point, right? So from an ADA's perspective, or from a criminal defense perspective, my life hasn't changed, but the defendant's life has changed. He's lost his job. His family is facing eviction because he's the main breadwinner. Court date is coming up. ADA watches surveillance. Surveillance clearly shows the defendant was nowhere near the robbery.
Right.
Now, defense attorney goes to ADA, well, what are we gonna do? Oh, well, now we'll drop the charges. But at this point, it's already affected this person's life. So if you know you're being accused of a crime that occurred somewhere where there should be some type of surveillance, make sure it is requested, make sure it's requested early, and make sure you, with your own eyes, look at it. Because if you just ask your defense attorney to get it, what they will do is they will get it, they will put it on their desk, and it will sit there until you become important again, which means the day before your court date. Next thing is Brady. So Brady is a case that says if the prosecution has exculpatory evidence, meaning evidence that means that the defendant is actually not the person who committed the crime, they have to hand it over to the defense attorney. It should be done within a reasonable amount of time. That's subjective. Because
so
reasonable,
like it could be done in a day or two, or it could be done like 2 days beforehand.
There we go. So reasonable is subjective, but it is a big deal because Brady violations turn into convictions that are overturned. Brady violations turn into mistrials. They turn into ADAs getting fired. Brady violations are a big deal. And again, it goes back to the relationship between the prosecutor and the criminal defense attorney. Right. So you, as the person being accused, you have to be vigilant. You have to know, hey, listen, I think that what just happened was Brady, and why aren't we making us think about this? Like, we shouldn't even be going to trial right now because that's Brady. So that's another very important thing. Subpoenas. This is actually something that applies even to people that aren't being accused of a crime.
Right.
So a lot of people don't know that there's a difference between a subpoena and a notice to appear. Again, the name notice to appear changes based on where you are, but if you get a notice to appear, you don't actually have to appear. You still have a choice. And if you are given a subpoena, your subpoena has to have a date, a time, a location, and it has to be served on you within a reasonable amount of time.
Now, the subpoena and notice to appear, is the subpoena given to the defendant? Or is the subpoena given to, like, I'm the defendant, you're a witness, so you would have a subpoena, I would have a notice to appear? Go ahead.
A defendant isn't going to be subpoenaed nor notice to appear.
Okay.
You know, a defendant is going to have to choose to invoke their right to be present at the trial or choose not to be. I've actually seen defendants
so
say,
they don't even have to be there.
Exactly.
Okay.
I've actually seen a defendant say, I don't want to be there for the trial, which worked to their favor, and it was a strategy on their part because it was someone being accused of a violent crime who was obviously violent and crazy. So it was worked to his best interest that he wasn't there, you know? But no, if you're being accused of a crime, you're not going to be served with a subpoena or a notice to appear. That's going to happen to a witness. And as I said, even as a witness, you have rights.
Right.
If it's a notice to appear and you don't want to be involved, you don't have to appear. If it's a subpoena, it should be very clear and you should be given reasonable notice. And you know, if the notice isn't reasonable, you now have some wiggle room to say, well, I'm not appearing because I wasn't given reasonable notice. Again, that's something that you're going to want to talk to, you know, a defense attorney about before making that decision. But it's good to know because most attorneys will just tell you, you have to go, but you still have rights.
Is there any way to get out of the subpoenas themselves, like totally? Like, let's say if you, because the subpoenas, that's the ones where they could just roll up on you like you've been served.
Right.
So now if you've been served in that case, is there a way to get out of that, or is that succinct? Like, is that you have to be there?
So as I said, unless it's lacking in specificity, or unless you're arguing that you weren't served within a reasonable amount of time, there really is no way to get out of it. But
Gotcha.
you know, there are other rights that come into play. I mean, how many times have we seen someone just plead the fifth the whole time that they're on the stand?
Right.
You know. So if in fact you feel that you might incriminate yourself, well, then you can show up and tell them. Yeah, I just watched that Dave Chappelle skit the other day. The best part was the FIF on the piece.
1, 2, 3, 4, feel.
Yeah, if you really just show up and just do the Dave Chappelle thing the whole time. You can do that, you know. Any questions about subpoenas before I go to search warrants?
No, that was cool. The search warrants is.
Search warrants and searches by consent.
That's
there
what
are
I wanna
so
hear.
many gray areas in searches that
call
people
this the
do
clear.
not know. Oh my goodness. I'm actually going to start with searches by consent because those happen more often than search warrants.
Yeah, this is for Negro though. Right
Here is some crazy things about searches by consent. Did you know that a minor can consent to a search of your home? So if the police come to your house and your 9-year-old child is home alone, your 13-year-old child is home alone, your 16-year-old child is home alone, they can open the door and the police can say, I want to come in and search. Do you mind? Okay. Now the police can come in and search.
And just search 'cause
The things that a judge will consider is, well, did this child really understand what it meant to allow the person to come in and search? Does this child live there? Things like that. But as long as they can establish the child lives there and the child was old enough to understand what it was doing when it let the officer in, yes, a minor can consent to a search of your home.
I taught my son that, like, he's 4, right? And like we'll be walking, and it's like I guess like I might have been over the top with him a little bit, but like we'll pass cops and he'll be like, oh my God, I hate cops. Like, you know what I mean? Now, reason being is because he said one time like he wanted to be a cop, and I was like, or a fireman or a doctor, I don't know, whatever the hell. But I was like, you're never gonna be a cop. Ain't no police in this family. You know what I'm saying? Cops murder black and Hispanics. So he was like, okay, I understand. So now he geared up, like you know what I mean. But longer the story short, if your kids don't know that, they will do that. They just think they're being friendly or whatever the case may be, thinking that, oh, this is a policeman because my teacher said they're here to help. And
that's what they bank on too.
And for people who don't have children, roommates can consent to a search of your house. That's a big thing for a lot of urban areas. Roommates. So, you know, you room with such and such, and the officer showed up and said, hey, roommate, we want to search the house. The roommate can give consent to search the house, and you're not there and you're not offering consent. So here's how you protect yourself.
What about landlords?
What if you're there at the same time?
Well, that's different because, of course, if you're there and you say, no, I don't consent, then there's no search.
Okay, so even if the roommate is there, so me and Kadazai roommates, he say no, I'm like, yeah, they got to follow what Kadazai, okay.
That's all it takes. Now, of course, they may, depending on how rogue the officers are, they may take your consent and run with it, but it's a higher chance that whatever they find won't be admissible. If you have, you know, your roommate or the second owner of the house on the other side saying, no, I don't want the search, you know?
Landlords.
Landlords, that's sticky. So it depends on how close you and your landlord live, which is why I'm going to get to the next stage of how you protect yourself. Your private area should be secure. There should be a door that locks and a key that you have, period. Because even if your landlord has a key to that door, it's an extra search that landlord gives them the key to come into the room. So now you've established enough separation from the landlord and from your area that you can argue, no, there was no consent for you to go in there. There was consent for you to be all out here. But once you had to go and get a key, to go and open the door, to go inside, you didn't have consent from me. And now you've taken too many steps without consent.
This is good stuff.
So protect yourself. Have an
At
area.
all times.
If you have an area where you feel like this is my private area, secure your private area. It's the same thing actually applies to the minors. Your child lets the police officer in, but you keep your bedroom door locked and you have a key. Even if your child goes and finds some key somewhere, you have a better argument that consent stopped, consent ended. Because this is my private area and I obviously made it private by locking it. So that other person can't give you consent. The consent stopped right there at the door because I locked it and I wasn't there to let you in.
Got you.
Okay?
That's good to know.
So searches by consent. Secure your private area. Secure your private area. Almost anyone can consent. Senile grandmothers have consented to searches and gotten 20-something-year-olds 15 plus on cocaine charges. I've seen it. Grandmother doesn't really understand what's going on. She lets the person in. They find the coke in his bedroom. So secure your private area. Search warrants.
And don't sell coke.
Of course. Of course not. Of course. Do not ever commit any crimes at all.
Just throwing it out there.
No crimes at all. Oh, and something that I just want to throw in there.
Throw it in there.
Let's say this search does lead to some type of evidence being found. In order for you to challenge the admissibility of that evidence in court, you have to have something called standing. So you have to have some right to say, listen, I want this evidence suppressed. You don't have a standing to abandon property. So the best example is, man is running from the police. He reaches into his backpack and throws something in the bushes because if they catch up to him, he doesn't want them to get it. Whatever he just threw into the bushes is now abandoned property. So when they go into that bush and they pick it up, his lawyer cannot argue that that should be suppressed at trial. It's automatically admissible because you abandoned it. So you gave up your right to challenge that it should be admissible in court.
Right.
Another thing that my criminal procedure professor used to say all the time, she was really, really ridiculous, keep your coke in your bag. Keep it in your bag. Keep it in your bag and keep running, because at least you have the right to challenge the standing. The minute you take it out and throw it away, it's abandoned property, you have no right. Next thing is that guests have no standing, which is why the company you keep is tantamount. Because now you're at whosoever's house, the police come in and they find guns and whatever else they find, and they're charging you with possession of one of the guns because they're saying, what, it was within your control, it was within your dominion, and you can't even challenge anything that's being found and try to get it suppressed in court because you're not at home, you're in somebody else's house. Guests have no standing. Overnight guests, sometimes they've been found to have standing. It's a case-by-case thing. But in general, a guest has no standing.
Well, I think that's good. A guest shouldn't have no damn standing. They're a guest for a reason.
So
You
don't.
go to a hotel, you ain't got no standing in that hotel.
So don't throw your paraphernalia.
Don't throw it. If it's in your bag, keep it in your bag. Keep it in your bag and keep running.
Don't
because
have
guess
the
what?
paraphernalia.
Right.
Don't have it at all. But I'm just.
We know that. We know the PSA is don't do it. Don't have it. But this is just tidbits of information for people who may know someone who may know someone.
Right.
Because we know that you're not doing it. We know that.
Anymore.
At all.
Because Commander General Yohana took me and cleaned me.
So you don't have paraphernalia no more?
No, not anymore. But I used to keep it in a sock and I used to throw it. Who's gonna pick up a sock? You feel me? Nobody.
That was abandoned property, by the way.
So she got legal on it. She got legal on it.
By the way.
That was abandoned property.
So yeah, search warrants, we already know that. I don't even need to go into too much detail about that. A search warrant is drafted by the prosecutor in their office. It's then brought down to a judge. Judge reviews it. As long as the judge feels that it meets the burden of proof, it has enough evidence to believe that some type of crime occurred within this place or within this thing. I say within this thing because this is something people might not know. You do need a search warrant to search a cell phone, to unload the contents of a cell phone.
You do need that, right?
Really?
So, yeah, because that's a lock on. That's like a lock of a door.
You do. There you go. Because to take that extra step, you need more evidence. So if they take your phone and there's a code on it, that's an extra step, and they need a warrant for that extra step.
Right.
Look at that.
Okay, so search warrant, standing, we covered that. Anything about that before we go to plea bargaining?
No, I'm good to go on that.
Okay. Plea bargaining, I kind of touched on it earlier, but it's just important to know, number one, you should never, ever plead guilty to something that you did not do. Period, point blank. You should never be doing it. And there are so many occasions where defendants are in court pleading guilty and saying on the sidelines, well, I didn't really do it, but my attorney said I should just take this plea, or absolutely not. If you did not do it, you should not be pleading guilty. Period, point blank. The reason is that everything affects you. And whoever it is going to tell you that it doesn't affect you. Same thing when I was going on my rant about violations. Whoever it is will tell you that the violation does not matter. Of course it does. Point me to a U.S. Marshal with a violation. There are none. So now you're already barred from certain careers because whosoever told you that it's a violation. And so, you know, it's not a big deal. No, it is a big deal. It's your life. And you should not be pleading guilty to anything that you did not do.
Right.
Period.
I agree with that.
Now, let's say you did do it, and so you want to plead guilty. Of course, now you want to have some type of bargaining going on between your defense attorney and the prosecutor. We already spoke about your defense attorney being, you know, likable, but it's also important to make sure that your defense attorney is being reasonable, and that starts with you. Have reasonable expectations, because it's just like negotiating in any type of business arena. If you come to someone with a ridiculous number, they're gonna walk away because you sound ridiculous. So, you know, be reasonable, talk to your attorney, and make sure that you're going to the prosecutor with a reasonable offer. You're being charged with several misdemeanors, and, you know, the violations, the misdemeanors are racking up and the violations are all the way down here. Don't go to the lowest violation and say that's what I wanna plead to. That's not realistic, and they're just gonna walk away. Pick a lesser misdemeanor or a violation that's somewhere towards, you know, the higher charge level. Be reasonable and say, listen, I'm willing to do this. So that's all I got on plea bargaining.
Okay.
Anything on that before I move to trial?
No.
No? Okay.
For those that don't know, the trial is the last portion of the sisters.
We did make excellent timing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I'm really excited
very
about
solid.
that.
Yeah, we got ask questions. That's what I'm letting the people know. We're getting to the question and answer. She did this almost like a precept book.
Yeah,
We're getting close.
She did it line for line, precept upon precept.
I learned a lot.
Yeah, I did too.
I learned a lot.
One of the most informative classes.
This like about 9 years ago, this would have been like a lot better for me, but you know what I mean?
Still good to know now,
it's still,
right?
Yes.
So trial, 30-30 time. You know you have a constitutional right to a speed trial. In the state of New York, it's called 30-30 time. Every state has their own state version of your right to speedy trial. We hear a lot of stories about people being incarcerated forever on these trials, that they end up either being found not guilty or things like that. But what a lot of people don't know is the prosecutor doesn't have an endless amount of time. And a lot of people are uneducated about how they're being screwed over by their defense attorney. Again, because of the relationship between the prosecutor and the defense attorney, right? So 30-30 time, just as an example, in the state of New York says, listen, you have a certain amount of days to be ready for trial based on what you're charging this person with, right? So let's just throw it out there and say the prosecutor has 30 days. How, in fact, does someone end up at Rikers for 5 months when the prosecutor only had 30 days?
Right.
Well, the prosecutor goes to the defense attorney and says, I'm not gonna be ready. Will you waive 30-30 time? And the defense attorney agrees to waive your right to a speedy trial. That's how you end up sitting there for 5 months.
There's two cases come to mind with that. One case was the Purple People, when they locked them two brothers up. There was a case in Queens where these two brothers got locked up for a crime that they did not commit. They sat in jail for like 18 months. They actually sued the city and won. And what you're saying makes sense as to why they're able to sit. And another one, there was a young black brother that committed suicide. Khalif Browder.
His defense attorney waived 30-30 times several times, and he's being championed, or she, or I don't know the gender, is being championed as like this great hero several times.
And he ended up committing suicide for something that he did not commit. And what y'all are finding out is they make deals together. So you got the prosecutor and you got your defendant. They make, when you want to waive the 30-30 time, and so you end up sitting in jail even longer. This is more proof you should not be a criminal. Now, if you want to avoid all of this, just don't commit no crimes.
Now, the caveat I will add to it is, if you ask, it will probably be said, well, I waived the 30-30 time because me and the ADA are working on a deal for you. How long does that take? Does that take 5 months? I don't think so. Next thing that stops your clock on your right to speedy trial is motions. Defense attorneys, a lot of them get paid by the hour, right?
Right.
Billables.
Right.
I can milk your case with some motions. So why wouldn't I file a motion to dismiss that I know won't go anywhere? You know, a bill of particulars for them to tell me what they're going to have to tell me anyway. A motion to do this, a motion to do that, and that stops the clock. So now you sit in jail while they file the motions to rack up the billables. So, practically, it's important to know, and it's important to say to your defense attorney, what's my speedy trial time? Where are we? Have we waived any time? How much time have we waived? Why? Your defense attorney should be able to tell you each date they waived, how much time they waived, and why. It's not a blanket waiver. The judge will specifically say to the defense attorney, well, how long are you waiving? So you should be able to access that information, and you should be able to talk to your defense attorney about that. So, okay, now you've actually gotten to trial. Voir dire. Voir dire is the jury selection process.
Okay. I wasn't sure what that meant.
Some states call it voir dire. Like my state of Florida, we're very, we're very formal and we like to be fancy, so we say voir dire. New York would just say jury selection. They just, anyway.
Yeah, we ain't got time for that shit, jury selection.
We like to use, we're very formal. So, voir dire. It's important to be there. A lot of defendants waive their right to be there. You do still have a right to be there. It's a part of the trial process. And why not? Because this process is the personalization process. So as a former ADA, I've walked into voir dire knowing, okay, this is my time to make them like me. This is the time. This is when you start building the relationship. Because especially as an ADA in a more liberal district, you're walking in at a disadvantage. You're walking in as the man, the prosecution, and they don't want to like you. So it starts right then and there. It starts with the building a relationship with the jury. It starts with the pinpointing, well, this would be a good juror. This wouldn't be a good juror. So from a defendant's perspective, you want to always be at jury selection. This is when you start becoming a person and not a name. This is when you let the jury see your face and know, hey, I'm a real person. I'm not just a name and someone who's being accused of doing whatever this horrible thing is. And also, this is when you read the jury. You'll be able to read which jurors do and don't like you and whisper in your attorney's ear like, hey, I think we need to strike that person. Hey, we should get rid of that person.
Right.
I have seen more favorable juries come out when defendant invokes their right to be there during voir dire and has their attorney's ear. I've seen that happen. And I've seen it, again, throw a monkey wrench in the plans as an ADA because you're thinking, man, I want to get rid of this or that person. I'm out of strikes.
Right.
And this guy keeps whispering to his attorney, keeps, striking all of the people I like.
Right.
So you want to be there during jury selection. It is important. The personalization starts there. Questions?
Oh, that's the end of it, right?
That's
okay,
it.
so now... Wait,
Not
first
really,
drop some bombs for the sister.
Oh, wait.
For the banging ass show. I mean, she did an excellent show. Give her a hand clap, man. I mean, I think the information that she presented on this show, I mean, I think it's invaluable what she presented on here. So now, of course, we do have the question section. So again, the phone lines are wide open. We'll have some questions.
We're going to take a quick break.
Oh, we're going to take a break first. I'm sorry. You don't mind, sis, right? For the break.
We all that stuff. We're going to take a quick break, you know what I'm saying? We're going to play some music, and then we'll be right back with more Cross the Line Radio.
Stay tuned.
No sweat. No sweat. No sweat. That's light work. No sweat. I got a bunch of soldiers I can go get. They think they doing something, they ain't no threat. And I ain't fell victim to you hoes yet. No sweat. No sweat. They try, still be running through they whole set. They think they doing something, they ain't no threat. And I ain't fell victim to you hoes, yeah. I ain't top 40 or nothing, but I can do that. To make a single is no biggie, not even 2-pack. My tracks beat so hard, leave a nigga blue-black. And when it flood, had them young bloods like how you do that. I'm old school, straight out the city like I'm a new jack. And I was raised in these streets, now where was you at? See, I'm the type of boss that walk in like where the loot at. And you the type of sucker that real niggas will shoot at. Enough about me and you, cause we know what the difference is. Y'all talk too much, like compound sentences. I'm about to murk this beat, hope I don't leave no witnesses. When we slide through, it's real niggas on the premises. You think you done seen it all, but this is just the genesis. Say you wanna run it, you better lace up your tendencies. Ain't about how you begin it, nigga, it's how you finish it. We put in that work, and now it's time to reap the benefits. That's light work, no sweat. I got a bunch of soldiers I can go get. They think they doing something, they ain't no threat. And I ain't fell victim to you hoes yet. No sweat, no sweat. They try, still be running through they whole set. They think they doing something, they ain't no threat. And I ain't fell victim to you hoes yet. My job is being the man, I'm still doing it. Now watch me eat these beats alive, not even chewing it. Gave these young niggas the game and then they ruined it. You might as well sit your ass down until I'm through with it. I remember beatboxing and freestyling with Super Jit. That nigga caught 15 years over some stupid shit. We used to dream about this rap thing becoming lucrative, but now my whole aim has changed. I'm chasing rulership. My dogs came to bring the pain, but we not Wu-Tang. We walk in, we shut shit down. That's how we do things. These rap niggas lie. We come to give you that true game. And all my rhymes based on a true story like 2 Chainz. Hotter than blue flames. We ain't cooling down though. Headed to the top. We started off at the ground floor. Y'all niggas brown nose like y'all on the down low. Game over. What you clowns still hanging around for? That's light work. No sweat. I got a bunch of soldiers I can go get. They think they doing something, they ain't no threat. And I ain't fell victim to you hoes yet. No sweat, no sweat. They try, still be running through they whole set. They think they doing something, they ain't no threat. And I ain't fell victim to you hoes yet. No sweat, no sweat, no sweat.
Yeah. You already know, man. We back live and direct. You understand? In the meantime, though, you understand? Let's hear a quick ad from our sponsors.
Yeah.
Addictive Chaos.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Yeah. Hey, man, y'all know I'm about to make a beer commercial.
We got a couple of commercials coming. Addictive Chaos.
Addictive Chaos.
For example, this hoodie right here.
Yeah,
you know
look
what
at
I'm
that
saying?
hoodie.
Check out that hoodie.
Yeah,
What I want you to do is to fix that camera. You know what I'm saying? So what I want y'all to see is, you understand, y'all go inside the description link. Yeah. You understand?
Get the cross the line shirt.
Cross the line. We got hoodies. We got t-shirts, body bag t-shirts. More than just that. You understand? There's also socks and pillows and so on and so forth. You get what I'm saying?
Listen,
and
you can get the blanket and then tell your rib.
You understand?
You crossing the line tonight.
Man, y'all are crazy.
Just lay it across the line on the bed and say,
because I'm going to put that in a body bag.
And now, if she get on the bed, that means she crossing the line, right, Karad?
Yeah.
She get on the bed, that means she ready to cross that line.
But with that being said, you understand, the music's in the description box, Addictive Chaos, you understand? Right now, you understand, 646-902-6868, 646-902-6868. You understand? We better open up the phone lines.
Yeah, no sweat. Listen, this your show.
Oh,
wait, you got to turn your mic on.
Good.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
there we go.
So a couple things. First thing is they are really funny. Second thing, I forgot to mention this. So they're doing victimless trials nowadays, meaning people are getting convicted of a victim crime with no victim. So here's what I mean. They're calling it evidence-based prosecution. So this person accuses you of assaulting them, you're arrested for assaulting them. They, for whatever reason, decide that they do not want to go forward with these charges, meaning they don't want to testify, they don't want to be involved. In the 80s and the 90s, that was enough. Okay, the case is going to be dismissed.
Right.
But now, if in fact it's decided that the case is viable, meaning if they have a police officer that has a good track record and won't get demolished on the stand, if they have a 911 call that they can use, they will play the 911 call, put the officer on the stand, and convict you with a victim that didn't even want you convicted. The way that the 911 call gets admitted is under a hearsay exception called excited utterance. So most people know that hearsay can't be admitted in court, but there's exceptions. One of the main exceptions is excited utterance. What it says is something traumatic happened to a person. They were still under the effect of whatever that traumatic incident is. And whatever they said while they were still under the effect of that traumatic incident can be allowed into court even if they aren't there, because it has what's called an indicia of reliability. All that means is it's reliable. We can trust it. The whole reason hearsay isn't admissible is because it's not reliable. But when I have you all stressed out because you just got punched in the face, I can rely on whatever you say. You're not lying right now because you're not in a state of mind to make up a lie. So that is exactly what they're doing. They're playing 911 calls, and if the person sounds shaken up enough, excited utterance. Play the 911 call, put the officer on the stand, convict this person of a victimless crime.
Even though the victim
is calling them and saying, I don't want this. Don't go forward. I don't want this.
Yeah, that's it. For you black women primarily, don't call the police. Black men rarely call the police on black women. Black women do call the police on black men, and you got to be careful in situations like that just based on what the sister said. So now we got the phone lines open, which we're going to open up the lines to y'all in a second. One question someone asked in the room, I'm going to ask you. She said, he said rather, the stuff that the Moors do, are you familiar with the Moors?
I'm somewhat familiar with the Moors.
Moors are like the nigga legal system.
Is that the status correction?
No, that's polite. That'll rob and take your money.
Okay.
The Moors and them cats that wear them red hats.
Yeah. So what's their stance? What is
they believe that. See, she's not familiar, so she may not be able to answer. So, like, Moors believe that there are certain. Yeah, Moors believe that there are certain laws that allow you. Like, for example, I know this brother who got pulled over. And he said he didn't have to show him no license because he's a sovereign citizen.
And then got slammed.
What does that mean?
I'm asking. That's why I'm asking you. Like,
Okay, let me tell you,
that means.
I have never heard of any type of sovereign citizen, and I'll go ahead and say this too, the status correction thing, all of it, I've never heard of. I've been in many courtrooms, and I've seen many successful and unsuccessful arguments. I don't know of any of that to be legally true. So every time I hear it, I'm thinking, well, and I've asked people, I've said, point me to the law that you're citing when you're telling me that you don't have to do this because you're sovereign or that you've changed your status, and no one can point me to the law, the actual law that they're citing. It's not a thing.
They believe that they could drive without a license, and because that's just like America is the policy holders, and the police, they enforce the policy.
So what does that mean practically? You see what I'm saying?
I'm gonna
you're
use
taking
you
this
as a
theoretical
soundbite.
idea.
I want you to know this. I'm gonna play
and
this
how
shit.
are you going to apply that in your life? How does that work?
Thank you.
That doesn't work.
No
That's
problem. Moving on. I'll take one more question in the room before we do the callers on the line. Anybody had a question in here? Okay. What's your question? He needs a mic. Told you to send you a text about that.
Thank you. In regards to the probable cause segment that you went through, you gave an example of maybe a neighbor saying that my other neighbor punched me in the face, and the police can come and arrest him. Someone who's falsely accused, what's the best defense for them to fight that? I mean, what do you do in a situation like that?
Good question,
So,
Officer Shalayala.
That is a
From
very
the Bronx
insightful
camp.
question.
Lick a shot.
Very insightful question. So, unfortunately, that can come down to your credibility. So, when the police show up to arrest you, they are going to, well, they might hear you out. At that point, you'll be able to say, listen, this is a false accusation. This is what happened. And I actually have seen instances in which the person has been able to explain to the officer this is a false accusation, and it just went away. Sometimes. But with that report, that's enough probable cause for them to arrest you anyway. And then what may happen is you'll need to either make that plea to the ADA later on, or still make that plea to the officer and have the officer present all of that to the ADA. Because this is something that I forgot to mention. Just because you're being arrested doesn't have to mean that you're ultimately charged, right? So the police officer is supposed to bring all this information to the ADA, and then they write up the actual charging document. So maybe even if the officer doesn't decide to just kind of forget the whole thing and he still arrests you, he maybe can still take whatever information you gave him or her to the ADA. And the ADA can consider that when they're writing up this document and maybe say, you know what? I don't think this is legit. I think I'm gonna actually decline to prosecute this. So, oh yeah.
Just to piggyback off of that real quick. Now, just hypothetically, if say the DA decides to take the case on us, or whatever the case may be, you went into, you also spoke about never admit to guilt if you're not guilty. So there's a plenty of brothers and sisters that face the, you know, they might be in a situation to where if they don't say they're guilty, then they'll get the maximum time. If they say they're guilty, then they'll get a minimum time, but they know they're not guilty and the odds are stacked against them. In that case, should they continue to, should they say, you know what, you know, I have to take this charge in order to get lesser time, or should they continue to fight and possibly get the maximum sentence?
So this is going to be a hard truth. Realistically, if you maintain your innocence, yes, you probably will be doing more time. But in the world of criminal law, the record is everything. So if you establish a record that you committed a crime you didn't commit, that's done. You'll never be able to fight that ever again. But if you fight it and you take the L and you do your time, now you can appeal and appeal and appeal. There are so many levels you can appeal. You can tie them up for the next 30 years to get that off your record because you are insisting that you're innocent. But if you take, you know, the shorter way out, and I'm not judging anyone, if you have responsibilities, whatever, I still would never advise someone who's not guilty to say they're guilty. But whatever decisions you make, you just have to know that if you take the shorter road, you are totally demolishing your chances for an appeal.
So it's better to just fight it. If you
better.
haven't done it.
If you are innocent, it is better to just say, I am innocent.
Because if it ever, your reputation, it seems like it's on the line. If something was ever happen again, they say, well, you pled guilty to this charge. And you won't be able to say, well, I pled guilty for this reason because I chose to take the lesser time or something like that. So it's better to just fight it.
Right, you'll have a harder hill to climb. I mean, of
Which
course
is
you
harder.
can say that.
Right.
You can say, oh, I only said it because of this and that, but how does that
Right.
sound, you know? All the prosecutor has to say in their responding papers is, you're going to trust the word of a guilty man? A man who said he's guilty but now says he isn't? Credibility problems. I mean, you know, you're totally, as I said, demolishing your chance to ever really be free of that accusation.
Okay. So now we're going to open the phone lines up, Kat. We're going to open the phone lines up. Now, I would like the calls to be restrictive to asking the sister questions. I don't mind never crossing the line. It never bothers me. But I would like, you know, we don't want to waste the sister's time. She came out here, gave some great information. So as we bring your callers in, please ask your ask your questions. Be very concise with it. All right, so first caller?
646-302.
646-302. You on live on Cross the Line Radio. What's your question or comment?
Hey, what's going on, Captain Tazariak?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Another great show. Man, I see why y'all the truth, man. Y'all definitely the truth. And that's
he's the MVP too.
Great information.
Man, you in the Cross the Line click, baby.
Yeah, you in the Cross the Line click. You the MVP, man. You go ahead, brother.
Yo, it's great information. Yo, now my question is, this is Righteous Hater. I'm still dealing with the issue with the Catholic Church and the molestation, and I wanted to ask the sister, is there? I keep my roadblock is this. They keep saying it's past the statute of limitation as far as what happened to me. It's past the statute of limitation. That's what the Catholic Church is using, and plus it wasn't a clergy member. What I want to ask her, is there any other way to come at the Catholic Church to get them to either reconcile or compensate me for what happened?
So statute of limitations is the ultimate roadblock in criminal law. I mean, statute of limitations is up, that is it. However, civil court is much different. So as I'm sure you probably know, if a lot of these victims are saying, listen, I was molested back in whenever I was molested, and that statute of limitations for the crime has passed, it doesn't stop them from trying to, take some type of action in civil court. Civil court will probably have its own statute of limitations, but there's a lot more flexibility with things like that in civil court than criminal court. The reason being that our entire constitutional system is built on the idea that the amount of restrictions on your liberty should be limited. So they don't play with statute of limitations in criminal law, but they may have some type of action in civil court.
Does that answer your question, brother?
Yeah, well, so should I how do I start a civil thing then? What is the process that I have to go to get the ball rolling then?
My recommendation would be to go and see an attorney. Go and see an attorney for whatever legal basis you think that you'd be filing this under. So maybe, do some quick Google work and see, okay, well, what do I think I would be making an accusation of? And then go to a civil attorney that specializes in that area, not just some general, civil litigation attorney, but you want to make sure you find someone that specializes in taking those types of cases and go in for a consultation with them.
Okay, so you're saying that I know you had mentioned about the Bar Association, so should I look up in the Bar Association civil attorneys? Is that the route to go?
Absolutely, and depending on the state, they may have some really awesome detailed roster of certain committees and certain types of law. As I said, unfortunately, it varies from state to state, but some states are as detailed as having listed on their website, Criminal Justice Committee, Trial Practice Committee. So you can look and see, this person is one of the leading, attorneys within this certain area based on the board website. So I would definitely say you can start with Google, look at, just their general reviews, and from Google, go to the State Bar website and make sure that you're choosing someone, like I said, that specializes in what you think your cause of action is. And it's good for you to have some knowledge on what you think your cause of action is, because you don't want to go in there blind and get turned around by whomever.
Okay, now when you say cause of action, what do you mean? Would my cause of action be that I was molested as a kid? Is that what the cause of action would be?
By cause of action, I mean what actual legal term you're going to. So for example, wrongful death suit, that would be a legal term. Wrongful termination suit, things like that. So what actual legal term are you using to name what it is you're saying was done to you? That's what I mean by cause of action.
All right, brother. All right, brother. So not to really cut it off too short, but I want to get the other callers in. But the advice that she gave you as far as contacting a civil attorney, I think that's the route that you should start there and run it down with them, and then you can proceed
I
from there.
appreciate it. All
No
right,
sweat.
shalom. And thank you so much, sister, for taking your time out to come on and break it down for us. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. All right, brother. Shalom. All right, next caller from Houston, 832-630. You're on live Across the Line Radio. What's your question or comment?
Hey, salam, I don't want you. Y'all about to Shabbat
Hey, yeah, Shabbat. What's going on, Art?
Officer Hoppin, Houston, Texas. Shalom to the sis. My question is regarding the consent to search to apartments or whatever. Like, I know she covered as far as like the landlord, but okay, like the scenario under my question would be, what if you are living in a public government housing, you know, like Section 8 or low income or whatever, and cops are trying to search your apartment because they usually like the cops that go to the office, they go to your apartment and they're trying to search the apartment and you don't answer or whatnot, they'll try to go to the office and get the keys from the office. Now, if you're living in these government housing projects, I'm in Texas, by the way, if that makes a difference, I don't know. But the question is, do you automatically lose your right to not consent to a search of your apartment if you are living under these certain guidelines in these public housing apartments?
So the short answer is no. But you mentioned that you live in Texas. So just like New York City has the Clean Halls Initiative, it is possible that Texas has some weird initiative with their public housing where they do random searches. But you have to know what you've agreed to, because whatever their initiative is, as a resident, you have to agree to it. So take a look at whatever paperwork you were given and make sure that you understand what you agreed to, because maybe there's something somewhere in that agreement that says we do random searches and you're consenting to them. But anything short of that, there should be no reason why anyone is searching your place without your consent.
Okay, gotcha, excellent. And I know the calls are short or whatever, but say for instance, there's nothing in the contract or agreement once you sign the lease or whatnot. Could that translate into like a suit as well against those offices or that apartment complex or whatever?
Could it translate into a, what did you say?
Like a lawsuit.
Into a lawsuit, possibly, but as I always advise with civil matters, I would say that's something that you would want to go and see a housing attorney about and see, but you're going to be severely restricted because, again, it's public housing.
Right, I understand. That's it. Big ups to, Across the Line Radio, man. I've been there since Israelite Vibes, man. Captain Johnny holding it down, man.
And we got a bunch of MVPs tonight. He remember Israelite Vibes.
Oh yeah, kind of one time. So,
yeah, that's what's up, man.
And I just want to say that the water to the sister, man. She's bringing out some like extremely valuable information. You know what I'm saying? That we really need in the black community. So I want to say that.
Hey, I appreciate the call out, man. Lord be with you.
Hey, shalom.
Shalom. All right, next caller from New York City, 347-858. You're on live on Across the Line Radio. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Stephen Taylor, hi. I really called to ask Captain Tazak a question.
Tazak?
Is there another day, a time that you can call?
Yeah, you can call next Thursday.
Next Thursday. All right. Thank you.
No sweat, brother. Caller from Orlando, Florida, 407-879. What's your name? Where you calling from?
What's going on? Shalom to you, brothers, man.
Hey,
this is
shalom
Brother
to you.
Joe Ready. Calling from Orlando. Sapase to you, brothers, man.
Okay, Sapase to you, too. Oh, yeah, Mamule, my bad. You speak that, right? Because I noticed you said you translated.
What you say, brother?
No, Jamaican patois.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
we said blanc c'est job.
Yeah,
I'm Haitian descended.
Oh, okay, no sweat, brother.
Yeah, you ain't know I knew Creole, huh?
Hey, man, it's all good, brother. You know what I'm saying? I follow you brothers, man. ISPK, man. The white
Okay.
man's the devil, man. I
Damn
follow
right.
you brothers, Captain Desire.
All right, you got a question or comment?
Yes. I got a question, comment for the sister. Hey, sis. I want to know. Okay, I got two questions. First one is, if a person have a gun license, right? Because I live in the state of Florida. Now, if I'm traveling to New York, are you allowed to carry a firearm in of the state of New York?
I am so glad you asked this question. As you know, each state regulates guns pretty much on its own basis, and then you have certain federal regulations. If the state of Texas allows you to have a certain gun, a certain weapon, and you have your license for it, leave it in Texas.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, New York has some of the strictest gun codes in the country. I mean, you could have a airsoft weapon and get charged for an actual firearm.
That's why Burris got locked up. I mean, outside of his dumbass shooting himself, but I think the gun was licensed in another state. It wasn't licensed in New York. So even if he didn't shoot himself and they would have just caught him with the gun, he would have been jammed up for that very reason.
And if that joint is loaded, you getting a year for every bullet.
Right. Okay,
Right.
Cool, understandable. And the second question is this: now I ain't gonna be too long. I got in a car accident back in 2016 in Florida.
Right.
Some white cracker, he hit me from behind, and I chased him down. Next thing, cops locked him up, things like that. Now, this case is going on for 2 years. So what happened was, he had a trial, things like that. The case got dismissed, and I called the state attorney and like, hey, why they dismiss him? Because they say that he was incompetent, he couldn't understand what was going on. So, and they're telling me in the state of Florida they can't charge the guy was incompetent. He had a mental health problem. So I want to know, like any state, are they allowed to charge a person that has mental health, like incompetency? You know what I mean?
Okay, so if this person was found to have some type of mental incompetence, which means they can't be put on trial because they don't understand what a trial is, they don't understand what's happening, yes. What probably happened was that the case was dismissed and that person was released to a mental facility. That's what normally happens.
Well, in the state of Florida, they didn't put him in a mental health facility. They just let him go.
How do you know that?
That's what the state attorney told me. The state attorney in Florida, they released him. You know, and I said, God forbid, I hope something happened to him, because he almost got injured, And I say death to him, that's all I got to say about that. Death to the white man, You know what I'm saying?
To my knowledge, if a case is being dismissed for mental incompetence, that person is being released to treatment. That's what I know of happening. But unfortunately, I don't know all the circumstances surrounding that defendant.
Oh, yeah, well, they say he was incompetent. Yeah, the mental health problem, they let him go. So, like I said, death to him, and I hope But anyways, that's all I want to know. Bless you, brothers. Shalom. Thank you, sis.
Hey, shalom.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right. We got just a couple more callers, sis. You're good. Thank you. 330-860 from Akron, Ohio. You're on Cross the Line Radio. What's your question or comment? Or what's your name, where you calling from first? I'm sorry. Hey, brother, I can't hear you. You sound super duper
You sound
low.
like you're underwater.
I was just listening in. That's all. You can mute me.
Oh, okay. No sweat. Got
All
you,
right.
brother. Go ahead and mute him. All right. 317, Indianapolis, Indiana.
You see, that's how it happens.
Yeah.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Hey, shalom, brother. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is JT, man. Call from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay. You got a question or comment for the sister?
Yeah, I had a question for you. Big ups to you, sis. Thanks for coming on the show and enlightening everybody. The question I had, I'm going to try to make this short and sweet. I was arrested in 2003 for domestic battery. A young lady lied on me, and
unfortunately, she was able to use the law and say that she was my girl. We lived together and we had a kid together. The police found out that she was lying, but they still arrested me for domestic battery. So I got to court. I got locked up. I was sitting in jail for 2 weeks, went to court, and I told the judge what was going on, and she took off the domestic battery and made me, well, didn't make me, but I had to plead to the battery part in order to get out of jail, because at the time I didn't have the money to bail out. So you talked about that earlier, you know, you take a plea just to get out or whatever. I did that. So for the last 20 years, I've been working with children, and every time I go apply for a new job, this comes up, you know, with this overuse arrested for domestic. So I have to go downtown and get paperwork showing that the domestic was taken off. So I went to apply for my gun permit, and of course that came up again also. So I was wondering, the question that I had was, since it's been, you know, since 2003, I can get my record expunged in order to get my gun permit. But when talking with people, they said that just because your record is expunged, they still don't have the obligation to give you a permit. So should I just do that, or should I try to kind of, I guess, fight to get my, you know, that taken off so I can get my gun permit?
So here's what I will say. I'm not going to particularly give you a definitive yes or no as to what you should do, but I would say that if it is something that, you know, you feel that you weren't actually guilty of and it's hampering you, you should definitely get it expunged. I will just caution you that government agencies will still be able to see it, because a lot of people don't know that. An expungement expunges whatever it is to the world, to society in general, if they do some play search. It does not ever go away for a government agency. They will always see it. There's no expungement from the government.
So they'll see that regardless, so it doesn't even matter. They will always be able to
Which is
pull
why,
it up.
again, it goes back to, I understand why you did what you did, but I cannot stress enough to not plead guilty to things that you are not guilty of. The arrest, in some cases, the conviction goes away, but the arrest still shows up. Doesn't matter, because the arrest still shows up.
Yeah, that's what happened. You know, like I said, that's what happens when I go apply for jobs. They see that it was, you know, that it dropped off, but they still make me go downtown. And, well, you still have to show us that it's off your record because it showed up. So, I mean, is it any? What do you think I should do about getting my gun permit if the expunge thing is not 100%?
As I said, you can go about getting it expunged, but just know that from the government's perspective, it never really goes away. You know, that's not something that I could give you any definitive answer on. I think you should really, you know, make that decision based on the regulations in your state, you know, and maybe if you want to talk to an attorney specifically about that, you know, but you have the rights to have your firearm, and if you feel there's something that you need and that you should have, I would definitely say pursue that.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it, sis. I appreciate y'all, man. Big ups to Cross the Line Radio.
Hey, no sweat, brother.
Shout out to General Johanna, everybody.
Yeah, you in the clique, baby. You in the Cross the Line clique.
You in the clique, man.
All right, brother. Shalom, brother.
All right, no sweat. Shalom. All right.
Yeah.
Boston, 857-333. You're on live on Cross the Line Radio. What's your name? Where you calling from?
It's me, Elijah. What's going on?
It's me.
You shouldn't even
I just said, I'm making fun of him and said it's me.
Yeah, I don't really remember you, but you got a question for the sister?
No, I actually had a question for you guys.
Okay,
Yeah, you
this
got
ain't
to
that
call
show.
up next
Yeah,
week,
gotta
man. You
call.
better pay
Yeah,
attention,
you can call
Elijah.
Thursday. You wasted. I'm glad you stayed on the phone that long. Chicago, 312-802. You on live on Cross the Line Radio. What's the name where you calling from?
My name is David. I'm calling from Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. No sweat, brother. You got a question for the sister?
Actually, no, I just wanted to make a comment if possible.
Okay, go ahead and make your comment.
I just wanted to just kind of put the brothers on notice, man, about what's kind of going on out here. It's not anything nobody really knows, but some shit happened to me today out here in L.A. all the way on the West Coast, and it's kind of in line with everything you've been seeing on the news with these nicknames they've been calling, people calling the cops on neighbors and different shit like that. European people in particular, but it happened to me today, so it was kind of a wake-up call because the circumstances under which it happened were completely racist. And it was clear, the conversation that I had with the gentleman who came out of his home, his apartment building is next to mine, but because he didn't recognize my face and he never seen me before, he began to ask me questions as to where I lived and why I was standing there talking on the phone in an alleyway that, belonged to nobody. It's public property.
Mm-hmm.
So when I proceeded to explain to him that had he had a problem with me standing in the alley, that was something he should have brought up. But if it was anything other than that, he had no right to ask me where I actually live. His first recourse was, well, you need to have a conversation with the police. I need to get the police out here.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have the police need to come out here and settle this. And my whole thing was, against all reason, against all sensibilities, what is your issue with me? Is it the fact that you feel that I don't have a right to be here? Are you making a legitimate argument over some kind of disturbance you feel like is being made? All of these things were being said to this cat. But of course, there was no penetrating this man's racism and his hatred. And that I just wanted to put the brothers on notice because I could see it in his eyes. I could tell by his tone that these men out here, not just the men, but namely the men, are using, or in their mind, they're using the police, or they think they can use the police as their own personal hit squad against our brothers these days. And I just want to keep the brothers on notice that in their mind, that is a real life tactic that they're enabling right now to try to take us out. So that's really all I wanted to say, because honestly, today could have been my last day had it played out another day. And I see these brothers, it happens on the news, and you look, and one day they hear it, the next day they're face on somebody's T-shirt. It just seemed like we make noise about it, but it's so real that it can happen to any of us at any time. So when it does happen, I just kind of want to put it out there and let y'all know, man. Keep y'all head up, man, and watch out.
We appreciate you, brother. Thanks for the call. And you know what I'm saying? We've been saying the white man's the devil since 1969. You know what I'm saying? So
since the garden.
301-291.
Yes, hi, Shalom.
Hey, Shalom says you got a question. Well, excuse me, what's your name? Where you calling from?
Shalom, Shalom, Captain.
Hey, y'all, Shalom, how you doing, sis?
I'm good.
All right. Did you have a question? Go ahead.
Shalom. Shalom. Yes, Shalom, sis. How are you? Thank you for the information that you're giving us. Very important, and you look gorgeous, by the way, at the same time.
Thank you.
My question is, I had a firearm that's in my name, was legally in my name. It was stolen, and it had went through ballistics. And when I went to go try to retrieve it, they told me that the case was still ongoing and I couldn't get it. So now that the case is over and the person who took it is actually serving time, can I go and retrieve it? Like, I still have the box, the legal paperwork, I still have the certificate and everything under my name, and I now live in a home and I would like to have a firearm. Or do you think I should go buy a whole new one?
So I definitely think that you should go after your property. You bought it rightfully. You have your paperwork. Once the case ended, it should have been released to you. But again, particularly ADAs have so many cases and so much paperwork that's not important to them. So I would say contact whoever the prosecutor is. That I'm guessing you are aware of the prosecutor on the case. I'm guessing. So contact.
I don't know.
No, go ahead.
She said she
I
doesn't
don't
know.
Oh, you don't know.
I do the person who took the gun.
Okay,
but
so
they're now serving time.
So contact that agency and pretty much tell them, I have stolen property that was held for a case. To my knowledge, that case has now ended and I want my property to be released to me. Every agency has some process you'll have to go through. You'll probably have to fill out some paperwork, maybe give them copies of the proof that you rightfully bought the gun and you legally own the gun, and then it should be released to you. I would definitely say that you should not have to go out and buy a new gun when you rightfully had your gun and it was taken from you.
Okay. My second question would be in relation to the same question. If the gun was purchased in a different state, in Hampton, Virginia, when I was there, now I live in a state of Maryland, and I live in a city where they don't really, they don't allow guns. But I know a girlfriend of mine who lives like 6 houses down from, townhomes down from me, and she actually has her gun, and she's from Baltimore, but she was in the military. So she was like, you know, since you don't got no gun, I was like, I had one, but, you know, it was in a different state. So my thing, that's why I asked you, should I go get it, or you think I should buy another one? But then yet, so you know, like you were saying to the other brother that called, every state has different laws when it comes to firearms.
So if you are not permitted to have a firearm in your city, in your district, in your state, you should not have a firearm. Now, it's still your property. You can still get it released to you, but you would have to get it released to you and keep it where it can be legally. You would not want to bring it to somewhere where it's going to be illegal.
Okay, so you're opposed to these.
Really?
She missed her gun, y'all.
She want that gun
I
bad.
mean, listen, Your Highness said, if you one of them sisters and you know what I'm saying, you got kids to protect, you know, you might want to get you a firearm. But and that's the weird part, because out here, these doubles sell rifles in Walmart. So I'm like, maybe I should just go load up on some rifles and then keep them in the garage or something. You never know. I'm just saying.
I see.
That's
now you
funny,
saying a
yeah.
lot.
Wait, what?
Is that okay, sis? Is that okay? Can I do that? Like if they sell, you know, like hunting rifles out here, can I get some and teach my sons how to load up just in case?
She wants to know if she can. They sell rifles in like Walmart. She wants to know if she can lock and load.
You know, quite frankly, now I'm a little confused because first you were saying firearms are heavily restricted where you are, right? Now you're saying there's rifles.
Hey, the white man is the devil, the Bible speaks.
So you saying, wait. So she's saying that.
My statement would be, don't do anything illegal. That's it. That keeps it really simple. If it's legal for you to have a rifle and you want to go out and buy a rifle, go get your rifle. If it's illegal for you to get one, then don't get one. Do not break the law. That makes it so simple.
There you go.
Thank you, sis. I'm really confused about that, how they say no guns, but then you got your Walmart that sells guns. I'm like,
Yeah, just keep it simple, sis. Don't do anything you shouldn't be doing. Done.
Got you. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you, sis.
She remind me.
Come on, brothers.
No.
She
Y'all
reminded.
need to
Salaki. Well,
Yeah.
she reminded me of what
specialty.
yeah, it is. She reminded me of what Jada said. He was like, they trying to get me locked in the slammer. I ain't worried about the 3 years. I'm worried about my hammer.
There's a question somebody texted me. They said, is there a statute of limitations on someone? Now, this question was texted to me, everybody. A statute of limitations on someone the feds is looking for in questioning for gun running and don't catch them. I don't know what that means.
So looking for, suspected, in questioning, you've got yourself an issue because remember, no rights have attached if you're not accused.
Right.
So, I mean, statute of limitations in what way? What clock is running? What's really going on? You know what I mean? Because you haven't been accused of anything.
Right.
Depending on what agency is charging you, they may have their own regulations as to what time could pass before they can charge you with what. But more than likely, no type of rights have attached because you haven't actually been accused of anything. But again, if they want you for questioning, you can make yourself known and then let them know, oh, by the way, I don't have anything to say to you because as we already covered, you have nothing to say to them.
All right.
I'm just going to tell everybody, if the feds got a case, they got you. That's all I'm going to tell y'all.
You're going to have to run.
You know what I'm saying? They got you.
All right, we got another caller. This might be the last caller of the night. Caller from Indianapolis, 317-215. What's your name and where you calling from?
251.
Yeah, what's your name? I already know where you calling.
Hey, Shalom. My name is Van. I was trying to call in tonight to see, especially like with the last call that I heard, it's kind of similar to what I think to mine. Earlier this year, back in April, Shalom, sis, as well. Don't want to be rude. I had a incident back in April where I actually got taken for a mental health eval. My wife wanted to have me admitted, and so I was admitted for a mental health eval. And then I had my firearm, which I had on me, taken. When the police had taken it, I went down to the Marion County office, went into their firearm department. I forgot what it's called exactly. But then they told me that they would get back to me or I can get back to them about when they could release it. But they said it'd be like 6 months out or something to that effect, right? So with me getting out, I got a mental health eval. I got out. I don't know
the status of it. I was also going to ask her if she knows how I could get that, and how I can get the firearm back that I had taken from me as well.
So maybe it's just me, but we have headed down firearms road, haven't we?
Right, they want to know about them guns.
But
I thought we was talking about something else.
Wow. The answer would be contact the agency that you originally spoke to and find out. But remember, as far as I know, there are no regulations on when and how they have to release your property. You know, they just have to release it at some point. So I would say contact the agency you originally spoke to and say, listen, you told me that it would be 6 months down the road. We're now at 6 months down the road. Do you have an update? But don't look for it to be released to you anytime soon, because they have, from what I know, no regulations on a time frame in which they have to give it back to you.
Okay. Greatly appreciate that.
All right.
And shalom, everybody.
Hey, shalom to you too.
He said, get the strap.
Any other calls that's not gun related? All right.
I think
that's the last call. Well, sis, it was a great pleasure and honor for you to come out here and give this information. I hope everybody appreciates the information that the sister gave. We hope to have more sisters and brothers like yourself that can come on the show. Maybe you spread our word around, and you survived. You know, it's pretty good. How did your experience on the show was okay?
It was an awesome experience. Also very edifying for me as well. I'm grateful to finally have found a platform that was willing to let me just share this information with no strings attached, you know? And I want to say publicly that I am here as a resource. Anyone that is actually out in the community trying to do some good, I am here as a resource. I am willing to help in any way that I can, you know, and that also includes Cross the Line Radio. If anything comes up and you would like my insight, or something comes up and you would like me to come back, I just want to be able to help our people with the information that I have.
Well, you're more than welcome to definitely come back. I'm pretty sure we'll have further use of the information that you have that, you know, could be beneficial, whether it's for us or our people. And I think this is what we're supposed to do. So again, I appreciate you coming out. For all our Cross the Line listeners, I appreciate y'all riding with us on this special Saturday edition. I look forward to seeing y'all on our normal Thursdays, every Thursday, 10 p.m. to midnight. We're on live on YouTube. Make sure you follow us, Cross the Line Radio. Make sure you go to the website, Addictive Chaos. Our ISUPK